Chapter 117. At this moment, the azure rainbow sword was not even 0.01 centimeters away from Li Mu's neck. A cold and sharp sensation came from his neck. Li Mu could feel that a sharp sword chi had already locked onto him. As long as Li Qing wanted to, she could take his life. Li Qing would not do this for no reason. Li Mu looked at her and asked, "Boss, what's wrong?" "Don't call me boss." Li Qing's face was cold, and her eyes were filled with worry. She looked at Li Mu and said coldly, "The one who just left the county office was not Li Mu." "Who are you?" When they left the county office, Li Mu's body was completely controlled by the venerable Master Thousand Illusions. With his cultivation, Li Qing, who was only at the spirit conjuring realm, could not see through him. However, it was clear that Li Qing had already noticed the abnormality at that time. Li Mu looked into Li Qing's eyes and said, "I am Li Mu." Li Qing met his gaze. His eyes were clear, and Li Qing was familiar with them. Perhaps someone could possess Li Mu, but they could not imitate his eyes. Her eyes gradually became confused, and her hand that was holding the sword loosened. Li Mu sighed in relief and said, "But when I left the county office, my body was controlled by someone and I was almost possessed. It was not easy to escape." From the beginning, Li Mu had been holding his body up, not wanting to be seen through. At this moment, he did not need to hide anymore. After he relaxed, his qi immediately withered. "You're injured." Li Qing put down her sword and quickly walked over. She poured her mana into his body and asked, "What happened?" "We were all wrong." Li Mu sighed and said, "The flying stiff that the seniors of the Fulu school destroyed was only a doppelganger created by Master Qinhuan using the souls of yin and yang and the 5 elements, as well as a large amount of blood essence and soul force from living people. The real him is actually in the county government, by our side all this time." Li Qing instantly understood Li Mu's meaning. She felt a chill in her heart and said in shock, "You're talking about Old Wang." Li Mu nodded and said, "Old Wang is the venerable Master Thousand Illusions. A few months ago, he was possessed by the venerable Master Thousand Illusions and was lurking in the yamen. He was the only one who could freely check the records of the people. He did all this in secret, and after we found out, he didn't hesitate to abandon the flying stiff clone. He wanted to possess me, but I killed him." Li Qing looked at him in a daze and asked, "You killed the venerable Master Thousand Illusions?" Li Mu pointed a finger at the sky and said, "I swear on the Tao that if there is even half a lie in what I said just now, let me be struck by lightning and not, you don't have to swear." "I believe you." Li Qing covered his mouth and shook her head. "No wonder you weren't sad at all when you saw him die." "So you already knew," Li Mu sighed and said, "Actually, I didn't want to believe it either, but it was the truth. He was extremely cautious. If he didn't want to possess my body, I would have thought he was already dead." Li Qing said in disbelief, "This person is actually so treacherous and cunning." Li Mu looked at Li Qing and said, "Boss, can we not report this matter to the higher-ups?" Li Qing asked, "Why?" "If the higher-ups know, they will definitely ask me how I killed the venerable Master Thousand Illusions. This will attract a lot of unnecessary trouble." Li Mu explained, "Anyway, the venerable Master Thousand Illusions is already dead. There is no need for these twists and turns." Li Qing thought for a while and nodded slightly. She said, "Let me help you heal first." Actually, it would be best if Li Mu went home and used the Heart Sutra to heal himself. However, he still allowed Li Qing to hold his hand and channel her mana into his body. Li Qing did not ask Li Mu how he killed the venerable Master Thousand Illusions. Li Mu took the initiative to explain, "I have a divine ability that can prevent others from possessing my body. The deeper the cultivation of the person possessing my body, the greater the backlash." The venerable Master Thousand Illusions' soul was dissipated by the backlash of that divine ability. Before he died, his monstrous hatred for me turned into evil emotions. After my injuries are healed, I will be able to condense the 6th soul. Li Qing thought for a while and said, "In this way, you only have the 5th and 7th souls left. Have you thought of a way to condense them?" Li Mu was startled. The fifth and seventh souls were born from love and lust respectively. Li Mu had thought of a way to collect these two emotions, but how should he tell Li Qing? Should he say that he planned to marry a few more wives and that love would develop over time? Li Mu shook his head decisively and said, no. Li Qing withdrew her hand and said, if you were a mortal, losing any of the 7 souls would endanger your life. However, you are a cultivator. Even if you lose 2 souls, it is not a big deal. You can condense your soul first. When you have the chance in the future, it will not be too late to condense these 2 souls. Li Mu smiled and said, I think so too. Before the Venerable Master Thousand Illusions died, he left me some pure soul energy. I should be able to condense my soul very soon. Li Qing reminded him, using other people's soul energy to condense your soul is a shortcut, but don't rely on it all. Otherwise, the mana you cultivate will not be solid enough. You will be like Ren Yuan, having only a cultivation level but not the strength to match it. In the future, when you fight with others, it will be very easy for you to be at a disadvantage, I know. Cultivation was not just about guiding and refining qi. If Li Qing did not learn Fulu, martial arts, or Abhijna, her current cultivation level would definitely not just be at the spirit condensation realm. Although Ren Yuan's speed of improvement was fast, if they really fought, perhaps he would not be as good as a Fulu school's spirit refinement disciple. In order to not arouse suspicion, Li Mu did not stay here for long. He left the duty room and, together with Zhang Shan and Li Si, arranged old Wang's funeral. Li Mu did not appear as sad as Zhang Shan about old Wang's death. He was not the original Li Mu. The time he had spent with old Wang was only these few short months. In these few months, he had treated old Wang, who was possessed by the Venerable Master Thousand Illusions, as a true friend. As for the other party, when Li Mu thought of this, he could not help but shiver all over. He busied himself until he was about to go to the yamen. Then, he dragged his tired body and walked home. On the street, a middle-aged man in luxurious clothes grabbed the arm of a sloppy Taoist priest and said excitedly, "Old immortal, last time I took the medicine you gave me. In less than 2 months, my wife became pregnant. You must come to our house and let our family thank you properly." The Taoist priest flung his sleeve and said, "You bought the medicine with money. No need to thank me." He tidied up the stall on the ground. Just as he was about to leave, he glanced and saw a young man coming from the front. He felt that the young man was somewhat familiar. After thinking for a while, he said in surprise, "You're not dead yet." Li Mu looked up and saw the Taoist priest who had said that he only had half a year to live. The Taoist priest circled Li Mu a few times. He clicked his tongue and said in surprise, "Not only are you not dead, but you've also condensed 4 spirits. You've also collected enough evil feelings for the 6th spirit. Boy, what have you done to make people hate you so much? Don't tell me you went to harm other girls." After being stunned for a moment, Li Mu bowed to the old man with folded hands and said, "Senior, thank you for reminding me that day." The Taoist priest did not care and said, "What are you thanking me for? I took 800 coins from you that day. Just to remind you, you don't owe me, and I don't owe you." Li Mu was no longer the rookie who had not even touched cultivation. Naturally, he would not treat the old man as a Jianghu swindler. The old man could see through Li Mu's 7 spirits and even the accumulated emotions in his body. His cultivation, if not Dongxian, was at least at the creation realm. The old man looked at Li Mu and said, "I don't think you're an evil person. Have you thought about how to condense the last 2 spirits?" Li Mu immediately said, "Senior, please enlighten me. It's fate that we can meet here." "Well, I'll give you some advice for free this time." The Taoist priest waved his hand and said, "The 5th spirit is born from love. The 7th spirit is born from smelly lungs. You only need to find a female cultivator of the spirit condensation realm and become a Taoist companion. Then you'll have both of them." Li Mu had thought of this method before. He shook his head and said, "It's not that easy to find a female cultivator of the spirit condensation realm. Then you can only marry a few mortal wives." The old man looked at Li Mu and said, "With your appearance, it's not difficult. If you can't find love, you can go to brothels more often. Even if you can't find love, you can still have as much lust as you want. The girls there love handsome men like you. Li Mu's first kiss had been given to Suhi. The other one could not be lost in that kind of place. If he had to go to brothels to sell his body to collect lust, he would rather not have that spirit. The old man carried his divine strategy flag and said, whether you can condense the spirits or not depends on your luck. I'm leaving. See you again if fate wills it. Li Mu watched the creation realm or Dongxian powerhouse leave. He did not have much contact with him. Although the sloppy Taoist priest had a high cultivation, his temper was quite strange. After the incident with Thousand Illusions Shangren, Li Mu was very cautious of these masters. To be safe, it was better not to have anything to do with these people. He returned home. Just as he opened the door, a white figure appeared in front of him. The little fox stood in the yard and said in a clear voice, "Benefactor, you're back." Two figures walked over from the side. Lu Hanyan looked around and asked in confusion, "Who were you talking to just now?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "No." Lu Hanyan was confused. Why did I hear a woman's voice? And it wasn't Constable Li. Did you bring a woman home? How is that possible? Li Mu said, "Maybe you heard wrong." Wan Wan saw the little fox in the yard at first glance. She ran in happily and said, "Miss, this little dog is so cute." The little fox lowered her head and said sadly, I'm not a dog. This puppy can talk." Li Mu, there's a monster. Wan Wan was shocked. Lu Hanyan's face was pale. She hugged Li Mu's arms tightly and hid behind him. Chapter 118. In the courtyard. Lu Hanyan and Wan Wan stood behind Li Mu, looking at the little fox in front of them with fear on their faces. The little fox lowered its head as if it had done something wrong. From time to time, it would raise its head and look at Li Mu pitifully. Li Mu could not even bring himself to scold it when he saw how pitiful it looked. All right. Li Mu withdrew his arm from their chests and waved it off. "This is Lady Lu, Lu Hanyan, and this is Wan Wan. Get to know them first so that you don't have to hold back in front of them in the future." Li Mu pointed at the little fox and introduced it to Lu Hanyan. He was stunned for a moment before remembering that he had not asked for its name. He looked at the little fox again and asked, "What's your name?" "Xiao Bai." "This is Xiao Bai, a little fox. I saved it from a hunter in the past and it's here to repay my kindness." Lu Hanyan's impression of demons only existed in novels and dramas. Compared to those demons and spirits who would eat people at the drop of a hat, this little fox did not seem that scary. Moreover, with Li Mu here, that trace of fear she had just now quickly disappeared without a trace. She asked curiously, "How is it going to repay the kindness?" Li Mu shrugged, indicating that he did not know either. The little fox immediately said, "I can massage your legs, clean your house, and even warm your bed." Wan Wan looked stunned. She was no longer afraid and said unhappily, "If you do all that, what should I do?" Although it was a fox, it was a female fox. In order to prove his innocence, Li Mu explained to Lu Hanyan, "It's a tradition of their tribe to repay kindness. If you don't let her repay her kindness, there will be problems with her cultivation in the future." Li Mu ignored her every day, so Lu Hanyan naturally did not suspect that Li Mu had any thoughts about a female fox. Looking at the cute little fox, her curiosity finally overcame her fear of demons. She squatted down and asked softly, "Xiao Bai, other than talking, what else can you do?" The little fox lowered its head in self-abasement. She was just a little demon who had just formed her womb. Other than learning to speak, she did not know any other Dharma spells. However, she quickly regained her confidence. She sniffed and raised her head. "I don't know anything now, but after I transform, I'll repay your kindness." Transform? Transform into a human. Lu Hanyan looked down at the little fox and then at Li Mu. "How do you want to repay me?" The little fox said seriously, "If you don't mind, I can repay you with my body." Li Mu looked at Lu Hanyan's deep gaze and understood what she meant. "I didn't teach it that," the little fox nodded. "No one taught me that." I saw it in Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio. Li Mu did not want to say anything more. He waved his hand and said, "You guys talk. I'll go cook." With the venerable Master Thousand Illusions dead, the biggest threat had been removed. Li Mu could finally return to his normal life. Although the little fox was here to repay his kindness, Li Mu still treated it as a guest. "What do you usually eat?" The little fox said, "I eat wild fruits in the mountains. Sometimes, Granny finds medicinal herbs and brings them to the city to sell. The money is used to buy us roast chicken." Li Mu thought for a moment. Foxes were omnivores, so there was nothing to be picky about. When it was time to eat, he found a clean bowl and scooped some food into it. He also stuffed a drumstick into it and placed it on the ground. After the meal, Lu Hanyan and Wanwan helped him wash the dishes and left. Li Mu said to the little fox, "I'm going out for a while. You stay here and don't wander off." The little fox nodded. "Don't worry, benefactor. I'll take good care of the house." Li Mu walked out and closed the door. The little fox ran around the yard a few times, still savoring the taste of the food. After a while, it ran to a corner of the yard, picked up a broom with its mouth, and began to tirelessly sweep the yard. After cleaning the yard, it found a rag. After wetting it, it wiped the tables, chairs, and cabinets in the room clean. When it came to Li Mu's study, it saw a bookshelf full of books. Its eyes were shining as it said in a daze, "There are so many books in Benefactor's house." It walked to the bookshelf and envied it for a while. Then, it jumped onto the chair and climbed onto the desk, carefully wiping the table with the rag in its hand. There were a few unfinished manuscripts on the desk. It was about to pick them up with its claws to wipe the bottom when it suddenly paused. It looked at the contents of the manuscripts and muttered, "It seems that this volume of Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio hasn't been published yet." Li Mu left the house and walked out of the city. Jinshan Temple's abbot Puji's injuries would be completely healed after another round of treatment. Li Mu himself was still injured. He wanted to rest, but when he thought about how Xuandu would transfer all his transcendence energy to him every time he treated the abbot, it would be easier and faster for him to recover if he borrowed Xuandu's transcendence energy. Jinshan Temple. Xuandu stood at the entrance of the temple and smiled. "I've been waiting for Benefactor Li for a long time." Li Mu smiled and said, "I'm sorry. I was delayed by some matters at the yamen." "It's fine." Xuandu said, then frowned and asked, "Benefactor Li is injured?" Li Mu said, "It's just a small injury. It's not a big deal." Xuandu took out a small bottle and handed it to Li Mu. "There are a few elixirs in this bottle that I got from the Danding sect. They can increase transcendence energy and have a miraculous effect on healing injuries. Benefactor Li, please accept them." The Danding sect and the Fulu school were both part of the 6 great Daoist sects. The Fulu school specialized in using Fulu to kill enemies, while the Danding sect specialized in refining elixirs. Their elixirs had a wide range of uses. They could increase transcendence energy, heal injuries, and even be used as weapons against enemies. Li Mu did not stand on ceremony with Xuandu. He took the bottle and poured a pill into his mouth. The pill melted as soon as it entered his mouth. The pure medicinal power was instantly absorbed into his body. Li Mu acutely sensed that the transcendence energy in his body had increased slightly. His injuries, although not completely healed, were almost healed. The backlash from that move was still too strong. The split soul of the Thousand Illusions Venerable Master bore most of the backlash for Li Mu. The remaining small portion still caused serious injuries to Li Mu. In the future, unless it was absolutely necessary, he would not use this technique carelessly in a life-threatening situation. This kind of self-destructive attack would hurt the enemy as much as it hurt himself. If he was not careful, he would die together with the enemy. As for the remaining injuries, Li Mu could recover on his own. He did not want to waste the elixir. He put the bottle away. The elixir was not very useful to him, but it was just right to use it on Lu Hanyan and Wanwan. The abbot of the Jinshan temple looked much better than before. He was a Buddhist monk at the peak of the fifth realm. Other than the masters of the ancestral court of Fulu School, there were few who could match him in the North County. It was a pity that he met the Thousand Illusions' venerable master. He was injured because he wanted to eradicate the heretical cultivation. He had seen many cultivators who fell into the evil path for the sake of cultivation. In comparison, the old abbot was more respectable. The three of them sat cross-legged. Xuandu placed his hand on Limu's back. Limu pressed his hand against the abbot's back and chanted the Heart Sutra. From outside the meditation room, a faint white light could be seen. In the temple hall, not only the monks of the Jinshan temple, but also the pilgrims in the hall were used to the faintly glowing Buddha statues. These few days, these Buddha statues were shining every day. This directly caused the number of pilgrims who came to the Jinshan temple to increase exponentially. The amount of money donated was also much more than usual. In the meditation room, Limu slowly withdrew his hand. His complexion was much better than before. Just now, when he was treating the abbot's injuries, Limu himself also received a small commission. He borrowed Xian Du's vigorous mana and healed his own injuries. Amitba, the abbot stood up and made a Buddhist salute to Limu, saying, "Thank you, benefactor Li, for these days." Limu smiled and said, "Master Abbot, you are too polite. The Thousand Illusions' venerable master has done many evil things. I was almost killed by him. Master killed him to get rid of evil for the people. Compared to Master, what I have done is nothing." The abbot did not say anything. He just looked at Limu benevolently and said, "My foundation was destroyed. If Benefactor Li did not save me, not only would my cultivation be difficult to recover, but I would also not have many years left in my life. The Jinshan temple will repay such a great kindness in the future." Limu said, "Master Xuandu has saved my life twice. Take it as me repaying his kindness. Xuandu is Xuandu, I am I." The abbot suddenly grabbed Limu's wrist and said, "I have seen Benefactor Li's dual cultivation of Buddhism and Taoism. I will lend you a hand again." As his voice fell, Limu felt a surge of mana that was several times purer than Xuandu's. It flowed into his body from his wrist. This mana was rich and powerful. Limu did not feel any discomfort in his body. On the contrary, he felt warm and very comfortable. Traces of a black substance were gradually discharged from Limu's body. Limu already knew that these were the impurities in his body. Last time, Xuandu had helped Limu temper his body once. He did not expect so much to be discharged this time. The abbot let go of his hand and said, "Benefactor Li's 7 spirits are still missing 2 spirits. This tempering will no longer be burdened by the loss of these 2 spirits. Taoism tempers the spirit for the sake of the physical body. Buddhism directly cultivates the physical body." Limu could feel the powerful strength in his body. Even the discomfort caused by the loss of 2 spirits had disappeared. He was delighted and said to the abbot, "Thank you, Master Abbot." The abbot smiled and said, "The one who should be thanking is me." Tempering the body was good, but every time, Limu's clothes would be dirty. When he left the Jinshan temple, he changed into a monk's robe. At the door, Lu Hanyan looked at Limu in confusion and asked, "Why are you dressed like this again?" Limu shrugged and said, "My uniform is dirty." Lu Hanyan pinched her nose and took the dirty clothes from Limu's hands. When she saw Limu's hands, she threw the clothes aside and grabbed Limu's hands. She said in surprise, "How did your skin become better again?" "No." She looked up at Limu and said, "Every time you dress like this, your skin will become better. What did you do secretly? Tell me honestly." Chapter 119. Women were extremely sensitive to certain aspects. Lu Hanyan could always detect the changes in Limu's body, such as whether he had become fairer, or whether his skin had become more delicate. Seeing that he could no longer hide it, Limu simply admitted, "It's because I'm still cultivating Buddhist techniques, and there's a senior monk who used his mana to help me temper my body." Lu Hanyan said in disbelief, "Cultivating Buddhist techniques will make my skin the same as yours?" Limu nodded and said, "Buddhism cultivates the physical body. In the process of cultivation, the impurities in the body will be constantly expelled, and the skin will naturally become better. Lu Hanyan's eyes flashed and she asked, "Can I cultivate Buddhist techniques?" Li Mu said, "Of course, if you don't mind some changes in your body." Lu Hanyan asked, "What changes?" Li Mu looked her up and down and said, "For example, your whole body will be full of muscles, or you might lose your hair or something." Lu Hanyan touched her beautiful black hair and imagined her body full of muscles. She shook her head decisively and said, forget it, I don't want to learn it." "What's the tempering of the body you mentioned?" Li Mu explained, "If there's a Buddhist cultivator with high cultivation who's willing to use his mana to forcibly expel the impurities in your body can become like mine even if you don't cultivate Buddhist techniques." "Of course, there's another way," Lu Hanyan asked, "What way?" Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Forget it." After that, he walked into the house. Lu Hanyan was about to chase after him when she suddenly thought of something and stopped in her tracks. She remembered what that method was. The combination of yin and yang, water and milk, not only could it greatly increase the speed and efficiency of cultivation, it was also greatly beneficial to the body of a person with pure yin and pure yang. The only way to make her more youthful and beautiful, and make her skin more delicate and lustrous, was to dual cultivate with Li Mu. Doing those things every day was a form of cultivation. Over the past few months, she had treated Li Mu as the person she trusted the most. In this world, other than Wan, she was the closest to him. However, being close to him was completely different from being intimate. After working in the music house for more than 10 years, she had seen too many men's faces. She had long made up her mind that she would only live for herself and not for any man. Li Mu was a trustworthy person. Lu Hanyan hoped to entrust Wan to him. As for herself, she was very satisfied to be neighbors with them for a lifetime. Li Mu had already walked back into the courtyard. When he walked out again, Lu Hanyan saw him opening his mouth to say something and immediately said, "I've never thought of getting married in this lifetime." "Don't even think about it." Li Mu took out a porcelain bottle from his bosom and poured out 2 pills for her. He said, "One for you and Wan. Eat it and it will increase your transcendence energy." After putting away the porcelain bottle, he said to Lu Hanyan, "Even if your physique is compatible with mine, you're not my type." "How many times do you want me to say this?" Li Mu had always remembered the matter of cultivation. Lu Hanyan's heart had just been touched, but she inexplicably became angry. Beautiful women were always conceited. Whether it was their looks, figure, cooking skills, or financial resources, she was very confident in herself. Over the years, there were at least 80 men who pursued her, if not 100, but they were always rejected by Li Mu. Sometimes, Lu Hanyan couldn't help but doubt his judgment. In the end, she couldn't help but look at Li Mu and ask with self-doubt, "Am I not beautiful?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "Beautiful. Is my figure not good?" "Good. Do you like my guqin?" "Good. Is my cooking good?" "Delicious. Don't I have money?" "Yes." As a woman, Lu Hanyan thought she was already very outstanding and had almost all the advantages a woman should have. She crossed her arms and looked at Li Mu, asking, "If you don't like me like this, then what kind of woman do you like?" Li Mu thought for a moment and asked, "Are you as obedient as Wan? Are you as good as our boss? Are you, don't say it." Lu Hanyan put away the pills and turned away without looking at Li Mu. Li Mu shook his head and said softly, Women." She didn't want Li Mu to have any ideas, but she also wanted Li Mu to have ideas. Lu Hanyan was very gentle when she was gentle, but she was also very unreasonable when she was unreasonable. Sure enough, Wan and the boss were better. One was well-behaved and obedient, while the other was straightforward. They would never be like Lu Hanyan, who accepted his things without even saying thank you. Speaking of Li Qing, last time Li Si said that Li Qing's eyes were not right when she looked at him these 2 months. What was wrong? He had to find a chance to ask Li Si about it. Li Mu walked into the yard and was about to return to his room when he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Today, the yard was surprisingly clean. Sometimes, Wan Wan would help Li Mu clean the yard after dinner, but it was never this clean. There were sounds coming from the study. When Li Mu walked to the door, he saw the little fox wiping the bookshelf with a rag in its front paws. On his bookshelf, the books that were originally just messy were now neatly arranged on the bookshelf. The things on the table had obviously been carefully tidied up. There was not a speck of dust on the table. The ink stains that Li Mu had accidentally dropped on the table last time had also been wiped off. Hearing the commotion at the door, the little fox turned around and said happily, "Savior, you're back." Li Mu looked at the yard and the study before asking, "Did you do all this?" The little fox wiped its forehead with its front paws. "I was alone at home and didn't have much to do." Li Mu did not expect that the little fox was serious about repaying its debt of gratitude. Others had Miss Conch, but he had Miss Fox. It was just that his Miss Fox could not transform into a human yet. The little fox looked at the bookshelf and asked Li Mu expectantly, "Savior, can I read the books here?" Li Mu said nonchalantly, "Go ahead if you want." He thought for a moment and poured out an elixir from the porcelain bottle. Placing it in his palm, he squatted down and placed his hand by the little fox's mouth. "Eat this." The little fox licked Li Mu's palm with its nimble tongue and swallowed the elixir. Then, it asked, "Savior, what is this?" Li Mu replied, "It's an elixir that can increase your dermic powers. It can help with your cultivation." Feeling the effects of the elixir in its body, the little fox seemed to be in deep thought. It raised its head and looked at Li Mu seriously. "Don't worry, Savior. I will work hard in my cultivation and strive to transform as soon as possible." Bai Yinshin was in front of him and the little fox was behind him. Li Mu realized that these little demons who had been cultivating in the mountains and had not seen much of the world were unusually simple-minded. With such intelligence, even after transforming, they would still help others count the money they earned from being sold. It would be good to let it follow him for a while. First, it was the tradition of the heavenly foxes to repay their debt of gratitude. For this reason, the heavenly foxes usually cultivated in the mountains and did not come into contact with humans. They also did not want to be tainted by karma. However, once tainted by karma, they would repay it even at the cost of their lives. If he did not let it repay its debt of gratitude, it would be cutting off its path of cultivation. Even if Li Mu chased it away, it would not leave. Secondly, Li Mu could also improve its temperament. Compared to humans, these demons who only knew how to cultivate were as pure as Xiaobai flowers. It was fine for them to cultivate in the mountains, but once they entered human society, such a temperament would cause them to suffer greatly. The little fox looked at the manuscript on the table and asked, "Savior, did you write strange stories from a Chinese studio?" Li Mu remembered that he had dug a hole for himself and immediately said, "That is a story in the book. You have to distinguish between story and reality. You don't have to repay a life-saving debt with your body." The little fox said in admiration, "Savior is really amazing. You can write so many good stories." After saying that, she said, "Can I ask you a question?" Li Mu asked, "What question?" The little fox was confused. What does double challenge in fox couplet mean? "I asked Granny, but she didn't tell me." Li Mu waved his hand. Children shouldn't ask so many questions. After reprimanding the little fox, Li Mu returned to his room and began to refine the wrath in preparation to condense filth purge's soul. Li Mu didn't touch the soul power left in his body by the venerable Master Thousand Illusions. The soul power was very pure. If he refined it all, it would be enough to condense his 3 souls to a certain degree. He might even be able to condense his soul directly. However, because the soul power was too pure, the difficulty of refining it increased. He planned to refine the wrath first. In the study, the little fox was lying on the table, seriously reading the unpublished manuscript of Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio. As it read, it muttered, "Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio was written by Savior. Savior must have despised me for not being able to transform." A figure skipped in from outside. "Sir, I'm here to help you clean the study." Wan Wan ran into the study and only saw the little fox lying on the table. She didn't see Li Mu and asked, "Where's Sir?" The little fox looked up. Savior is cultivating in his room. Miss Wan Wan, is something the matter? Wan Wan stood at the door of the study, suddenly feeling a little sad. She should be the one lying there. She was the one who came to this house first, but now she was like a guest. This little fox wasn't cute at all. It didn't know what first come, first served was. It even said that it would give itself to him after turning into a human. Humph, Sir would never marry a fox. Sir said that he liked obedient girls like her. As she thought about it, worry appeared on the little maid's face. The little fox seemed to be very obedient too. It would turn into a human sooner or later. Most importantly, she ate very little. She was full after eating half a bowl, but she ate at least 3 bowls per meal. Would Sir be like her parents and not want her because she ate so much? The girl sighed, her heart suddenly filled with worry. Chapter 120. Sigh. Sigh. On the swing in the yard, the 2 women, one big and one small, sighed at the same time. Lu Hanyan tilted her head to look at Wan Wan and asked, "Why are you sighing?" Wan Wan asked doubtfully, "Miss, did I eat a little too much?" No. No? There's no, a little. Lu Hanyan looked at her and said, "It's not a little, it's a lot. It's not like before. You don't have to go hungry anymore. Why do you still eat so much? You always eat until you're round." Wan Wan lowered her head and said, "I'm afraid of being hungry." Lu Hanyan sighed softly, hugged her in her arms, and said, "Don't worry. You won't be hungry anymore." Wan Wan was still a little worried and asked, "But will young master dislike me for eating too much and not want me anymore?" Xiao Bai eats so little. When Xiao Bai becomes a human, he will like Xiao Bai. Lu Hanyan was angry at the mention of Li Mu, but she still comforted her. "How can he not want you? He can't wait to have all of you." Lu Hanyan still remembered Li Mu's dream of the future. Earn a lot of money, buy a big house, and marry a few beautiful wives. Wan Wan was probably one of the "a few" he mentioned. Perhaps that Constable Li Qing was also one of them. Only she was not included. Lu Hanyan didn't know how she lost. Was it because Li Mu wasn't attracted to her at all, or was he trying to trick her by retreating in order to advance? Lu Hanyan thought carefully for a long time and felt that Li Mu wouldn't be the second kind of person. This made her even more depressed. Although she didn't have any thoughts about Li Mu, being ignored and disliked by him was also very embarrassing. Wan Wan's mood improved. She looked up at Lu Hanyan and asked, "Miss, why are you sighing again?" Lu Hanyan doubted herself. "Am I not pretty? Is my figure not good? Is my cooking not good? Do I not have many talents? Do I not have money?" Wan Wan said, "Miss is beautiful, has a good figure, cooks delicious food, is multi-talented and rich." Lu Hanyan murmured, "Then why doesn't he like me?" Wan Wan was stunned for a moment and asked, "Is young Miss talking about young master? Young Miss also likes young master?" "I don't." "Then why does Miss want young master to like you?" "Yeah, why?" Lu Hanyan suddenly felt that Wan Wan was right. She didn't want to marry Li Mu. Why should he like her? How could she be like this? She was so shameless. Lu Hanyan sat on the swing. Just as she was feeling conflicted, Wan Wan jumped off the swing and ran next door to Li Mu's study. The little fox was reading a book. It looked up and asked, "Miss Wan Wan, is there anything else?" Wan Wan moved a chair and sat opposite the desk. She asked, "Xiao Bai, how old are you this year?" Xiao Bai said, 16. "I'm 16 too." "How old are you?" "June." Wan Wan smiled and said, "I'm May. I'm 1 month older than you. You have to call me big sister." Xiao Bai curved its eyes and said, "Big sister Wan Wan." The 2 ladies living next door were obviously very close to their benefactor. It had to be obedient in front of them. Wan Wan asked again, "Do you like to read?" Xiao Bai nodded and said, "You can understand the human world from books. There's nothing in the mountains except for trees. You like the human world?" Wan thought for a moment and said, "Next time, I'll take you to my family's shop to watch plays and listen to songs. When you can transform into a human, I'll take you to buy beautiful clothes and jewelry." She had been looking forward to the human world for a long time. The little fox's eyes sparkled. It rubbed its paws and lowered its head. "Big sister Wan, you're so good to me." Wan patted its head and said, "Hurry up and transform into a human. Then we can play together." Although the little fox couldn't transform into a human yet, it didn't lose to a human in terms of work. The yard was clean and the study was neat and tidy. Li Mu felt much better. He asked the little fox during lunch in the afternoon and found out that it was 16 years old. It was the same age as Wan. The lifespan of an ordinary fox was usually only 10 to 15 years. When they gained intelligence and knew how to cultivate, their lifespan would be greatly extended. Xiao Bai's parents were demons. Therefore, when she was born, she was different from other foxes. Her lifespan wasn't shorter than a human's. Her 16 years old was almost the same as a human's 16 years old. It was better for demons to transform as early as possible. If she transformed now, she would look like a 16-year-old girl. If she waited a few more decades, she would transform into an old woman. With the addition of a fox in the house, everything was cleaned and tidied up. Li Mu felt comfortable living there. The only thing that bothered him was where she slept at night. Li Mu lived in an ordinary courtyard house. The main room was his bedroom. There were 2 side rooms next to it that were filled with miscellaneous items. There were 2 side rooms. One was used as a kitchen and the other was transformed into a study by Li Mu. Li Mu thought about it and decided to make one of the side rooms her room for the time being. After having her own room, the little fox still insisted on warming Li Mu's bed before she left. She didn't have any strange smell on her. Instead, she smelled nice. It was said that this was a characteristic of the descendants of celestial foxes. 9-tailed celestial foxes were comparable to cultivators in the 9th realm. They were the kings of the demon beasts. After cultivating 9 tails, their bodies would transform. Even after hundreds of years, their descendants would inherit some of the celestial fox's characteristics. Sleeping in a fragrant and warm bed, Li Mu suddenly felt that having a fox warming his bed wasn't a bad thing. The next morning, Li Mu came to the yamen. Zhang Shan was originally sitting in his seat, grieving over old Wang's death. After taking a few deep breaths, he followed the smell to Li Mu's side. He said in surprise, "Li Mu, why do you smell so nice?" Li Mu lowered his head and sniffed his own body. He didn't smell anything. He asked suspiciously, "Do I?" "Yes," Zhang Shan nodded with certainty. "This smell is so nice. It's making me impulsive." Li Si walked over and sniffed lightly. "It's the smell of a woman. Only a woman's natural body fragrance would have this smell." Zhang Shan said in a daze, "Li Mu, you found a woman. Old Wang just died and hasn't been buried yet. You've already found a woman." "Don't talk nonsense." Li Mu glanced at him, then looked at Li Qing who walked in. "The boss is here." Li Qing walked into the duty room. When she walked to her seat, she paused and asked, "What's that smell? Why is it so fragrant?" If he knew that the smell wouldn't dissipate for a long time, Li Mu wouldn't have let the little fox warm his bed yesterday. He looked at Li Qing and explained, "A few months ago, I saved a little fox. Yesterday, I met it outside again. It insisted on following me home. It said that it wanted to repay my kindness." "A fox repaying your kindness?" Zhang Shan's face showed an interested expression. He asked, "How?" "I read in the book that they will turn into humans and help you." "Is it true?" Li Mu glanced at him and said, "What kind of nonsense books are you reading?" Zhang Shan said, "It's strange stories from a strange story." "It's not a nonsense book. I saw the boss reading it last time. Pretend I didn't say anything." Li Mu waved his hand and explained, "It's just a little fox with spiritual intelligence. It can sweep the floor, wipe the table, and so on. It can't turn into a human, and it won't help me with that, so the books are all fake." Zhang Shan heard this and immediately lost interest. He went out to patrol. Li Qing looked at Li Mu and asked, "Little fox?" Li Mu said, "It's a little demon that has just formed its embryo. A few months ago, it accidentally fell into a hunter's trap. I was the one who saved it." "A female fox?" "Yes," Li Qing said faintly, "it's hard to guess what demons are thinking. You can't believe everything they say. Be careful." After saying that, she walked out of the duty room and left the yamen. Li Si looked at Li Qing's back as she left. His expression was one of disbelief. He muttered, "How is that possible?" "What do you mean, how is that possible?" Li Mu remembered that he still had questions to ask Li Si. He looked back at him and asked doubtfully, "Last time you said that the way the boss looked at me was strange. What's wrong?" Li Si said, "That's not the way she looks at her subordinates." Li Mu asked, "Then what's with that look?" Li Si sighed softly and said, "The boss seems to like you." Li Mu was stunned for a moment. Then he waved his hand and said, "How is that possible?" Li Si said with a deep gaze, "A person's expression can be deceiving. His words can be deceiving. But the look in his eyes can't be deceiving. There's a big problem with the way the boss looks at you. Besides, don't you think that she's too good to you?" Li Mu thought about it carefully. Li Qing was very good to him. But wasn't it because Li Mu didn't have long to live? As the boss, she was trying her best to help Li Mu prolong his life. Lu Hanyan was also very good to him. Could it be that she also liked him? This was impossible. Li Mu looked at Li Si and asked, "Is the boss not good to you?" "This is different." "What's the difference?" Li Si smiled disdainfully and asked, "Do you dare to bet with me?" Li Mu asked, "What do you want to bet?" "Let's bet on the same thing. Does the boss treat you differently from us?" Li Si looked at him and said, "If you lose, you'll patrol the streets for me for a month. If I lose, I'll patrol the streets for you for a month." "What? Do you dare to bet with me?" Li Mu also smiled disdainfully. "Why not?" The two walked out of the government office and saw that Zhang Shan didn't patrol. Instead, he squatted at the corner of the street. He broke the steamed bun in his hand and threw it to a colorful wild cat. As he threw, he whispered, "Are you a male cat or a female cat? Can you talk? Can you turn into a human? Meow. What does meow mean? Can you or can you not? If you can, quickly turn into a human." Chapter 121. Li Si waved at Zhang Shan from afar and said, "Old Zhang, come here. I need your help with something." Zhang Shan looked up and said, "I'm busy. I don't have time." Li Si took out a copper coin from his bosom and waved it in front of his eyes. Zhang Shan smiled disdainfully, "You want to buy me over with just one copper coin?" Li Si took out another copper coin. Zhang Shan snatched the copper coin from his hand and put it in his own pocket, saying, "What help?" On the street, Li Qing was patrolling. Zhang Shan suddenly ran over from behind. He held his forehead and said, "Boss, I feel a little dizzy. I think I'm sick." Li Qing took out a piece of fulu and handed it to him, saying, "Turn it into a bowl of talisman water. Normal colds and fevers will be fine after drinking it." "Thank you, boss." Zhang Shan took the fulu and ran to the back of the street. He looked at Li Si and said doubtfully, "You just want to trick the fulu. You can ask the boss directly. The boss will give it to you." Li Mu looked at Li Si and asked, "What does this mean?" "The last time I was sick, the boss also gave me a piece of fulu." Li Si said, "You try again." Li Mu looked at him strangely and walked out of the street corner. Li Qing saw him from afar but ignored him. Li Mu took the initiative to walk over and said, "Boss, I think I'm sick. I feel a little dizzy and my body is very uncomfortable." Li Qing reached out and touched his forehead, then grabbed his hand and used her transcendence energy to check. She frowned and said, "It's not hot. There's nothing wrong with your body." In the distance, Zhang Shan stared blankly at Li Qing, who was touching Li Mu here and there. He then looked at the fulu in his hand and said in surprise, "It's really different." After a moment, Li Mu walked to the street corner with a dazed expression. Li Si glanced at him and said, "1 month." Li Mu still didn't understand and asked, "You mean, the boss really likes me?" Li Si said, "Maybe it's just a little good impression. Whether she likes you or not has yet to be tested. But the boss does treat you differently from us. In short, you've lost." Li Mu's face revealed a thoughtful expression as he muttered, "Why does the boss like me?" Li Si asked indifferently, "Do you need a reason to like someone?" "Don't." "Do." "Don't." In terms of who understood women better, even 10 Li Mu's couldn't compare to Li Si's. If he said that Li Qing might like him, then it was really possible. Li Mu first assumed that there was such a possibility. Then he thought about it carefully. In the beginning, Li Qing didn't treat him much differently from Zhang Shan and Li Si. Later, after learning that he had a pure young body, she treated Li Mu better and better. Did she have a good impression of him, or was she lusting after his body? Li Mu had read many books and knew a lot of knowledge, but he didn't understand women's minds. Lu Hanyan had made up her mind to be single for the rest of her life. The possibility of yin-yang dual cultivation was infinitely close to zero. If he was together with Li Qing, who had already gathered her spirit, Li Mu's 7 spirits would quickly reach perfection. No matter how you looked at it, she was Li Mu's best choice. If she really had a good impression of Li Mu, as long as they cultivated their feelings in the following days, the two of them were very likely to have a happy ending. However, with her personality, she regarded cultivation as extremely important and might not necessarily care about the feelings between men and women. Moreover, if the two of them were together, Li Mu's dream of a beautiful wife and concubine with a big house would probably be ruined. Li Si glanced at him and said, "You already have a boss and you still want to flirt with other women. Do you think you have a long life?" Li Mu couldn't help but be shocked. "You can see that too?" Li Si said, "I understand women, and I understand men." Li Si had some skills after all. He could actually see through his thoughts. Li Mu couldn't see this even if he used the heavenly eye. However, Li Mu wasn't sure what Li Qing was thinking about him. He still planned to observe from the side. He walked back to the street and caught up with Li Qing. He asked, "Boss, do you want to come to my house for lunch today?" "No need." Li Qing directly refused this time. She asked, "Are you feeling better?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "I'm fine now. Maybe it's because the 3 souls haven't been condensed." Walking beside Li Qing, Li Mu's mind flashed. He suddenly thought of a way to test whether Li Qing had a good impression of him. He looked at Li Qing and suddenly said, "Boss, I've thought of a way to condense the last 2 souls." Li Qing frowned and asked, "How do you want to collect love and lust?" Li Mu said, "I read in books that some cultivators will directly disperse the last 3 souls and then play with women's feelings." Seeing Li Qing frown, Li Mu hurriedly explained, "Of course I won't use this method. Scumbags who play with women's feelings are even more despicable than Li Si." Li Qing's brows relaxed again. Li Mu took the opportunity to say, "But I can marry a few more wives and obtain the last 2 emotions from my wives. It won't violate the law and there won't be any moral problems. That should be fine." "Hey, boss, don't go." Li Qing seemed to be really angry. Ever since Li Mu told her that he wanted to marry a few more wives, she hadn't spoken to Li Mu for 3 days. She didn't even enter the room on duty. She was alone in the room where old Wang used to be on duty, doing who knows what. Li Qing's attitude made Li Mu feel a bit panicked. He wondered if he should take the initiative to apologize. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from the door. Then he smelled the fragrance that he hadn't smelled in a long time. Li Qing put a book on the table in front of him. She flipped to a page and said, "Love is divided into big love and small love. Lust isn't only about lust. There are other ways to condense the last 2 souls." Li Mu stood up and smiled apologetically, "I was only joking that day." Li Qing said calmly, "I wasn't joking with you." Seeing that she seemed to be serious, Li Mu also became serious and carefully read the contents of this page. This book on cultivation actually recorded a method for those who had lost their 7 physical souls to condense their 7 physical souls again. It turned out that Li Qing had been helping Li Mu find these things for the past 3 days. This touched Li Mu's heart. At the same time, he also regretted it. 3 days ago, he really shouldn't have deliberately played that kind of joke with her to test her. He first put away his other thoughts and studied this book seriously. Among the 7 emotions, love didn't just refer to the love between a man and a woman. Li Mu's previous understanding was a bit narrow. Other than the love between a man and a woman, there was also the love of a mother, father, and siblings. Li Mu didn't have parents or siblings. Naturally, he couldn't obtain these emotions of love. But these were all small loves. There was also a kind of love known as big love. Small loves left no trace, big loves had no boundaries. This kind of big love referred to the benevolence toward all living beings. If one loved all living beings, they would naturally be loved by all living beings. This was another kind of love that was different from love, parental love, and brotherly love. No matter how Li Mu looked at it, he felt that this so-called big love was very similar to Buddhist merit and Daoist psychokinesis. Merit and psychokinesis were a kind of power obtained from the hearts of people through doing good deeds to save people or taking in believers. Not only Daoist and Buddhist sects, but even countries also needed this kind of power. In every county and county of the Great Zhou, there was a national temple built for the people to worship. The prosperity and desolation of the national temple were closely linked to the prosperity and decline of the country. This kind of phenomenon could be explained from 2 different perspectives. Merit and psychokinesis were both real and mysterious powers. Whether it was Buddhist or Daoist, they could directly absorb psychokinesis to cultivate. It was the same for the imperial court and the royal family. More psyche power could only be produced if more people sincerely worshipped Daoist temples, Buddhist halls, or state temples. Therefore, whether it was Daoist or Buddhist sects, they would actively enter the world. By stabilizing the place, they could win the hearts of the people and obtain their power of faith. The imperial court also had to maintain the long-term stability of the counties and let the people live in peace and contentment. Only then could they sincerely worship the national temples. From another perspective, if the counties were governed in peace and the people lived in peace and contentment, there would naturally not be too many people who would commit evil deeds, let alone rebel. Wasn't the continuous and stable operation of the Great Zhou's entire system a sign of the country's prosperity? What Li Mu needed was to obtain the faith of the people, which was the big love. However, to obtain the faith of the people was obviously much more difficult than marrying a few wives. He might as well. Li Mu raised his head and looked at Li Qing. In the end, he did not dare to speak his mind. There was a replacement for love. As for lust, it was not the same as lust. The 6 desires were similar to the 6 senses. They were the desire of seeing, the desire of hearing, the desire of fragrance, the desire of taste, the desire of touch, and the desire of will. Lust was actually similar to the desire of will. If it did not exist, it could be replaced by the other 5 desires. The desire of seeing referred to the desire for beauty. If someone coveted Li Mu's beauty, he could absorb their desire of seeing. The desire of hearing referred to the desire for beautiful sounds and praise. The desire of fragrance and taste referred to the desire for fragrance and good food. Li Mu could not let others eat him. The desire of touch, as the name implied, referred to the desire of the flesh other than the matters between men and women. Lu Hanyan always liked to touch his body. This was the embodiment of the desire of touch. It was a pity that Li Mu could not absorb love from her. This was also why Li Mu was sure that she did not like him. Li Qing looked at him and said faintly, "There are many ways to collect the last 2 emotions. You don't have to force yourself to marry several wives." Li Mu actually did not feel forced. In fact, he was looking forward to it. But when he saw Li Qing's expression, he coughed lightly and said, "I just want to cultivate now. I don't want to think about the matters between men and women." The current Li Mu was not yet 19. Indeed, it was not the time to think about these things. He needed to refine the evil emotions as soon as possible and condense another soul. Then, he could continue to refine the soul power left in his body by monk Qinhuan. He needed to condense the 3 souls into a primordial spirit as soon as possible and enter the middle 3 realms. This was what he should do now. Only when he entered the transcendent realm could he begin to learn those mysterious and strange transcendent techniques. He could truly be considered to have stepped through the door of cultivation. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the courtyard outside the duty room. Li Mu walked outside and saw several uniformed people standing in the courtyard of the county office. Their uniforms were slightly different from those of Li Mu and the others. They were more exquisite and imposing. The leading man raised his head and asked loudly, "Where is the Yangqiu County Magistrate?" Chapter 122. Zhang Shan stood at the door and asked in surprise, "What's going on? Why are the people from the county government here?" Li Mu asked, "Are they from the county government?" Zhang Shan nodded and said, "I've seen the uniform they're wearing a few times. It's the uniform of the county government." He looked at them and said, "Yangqiu County is under the control of North County. The people from the county government must be on the orders of the prefectural governor. These people wouldn't come to the county government for no reason. It must be something good or something bad." Whether it was good or bad, it had nothing to do with Li Mu. He had lost the bet with Li Si. He had to patrol for him for a month. Li Mu accepted his loss wholeheartedly. He was willing to accept his loss. It was just a matter of walking one more street while patrolling. In addition to accepting his loss, Li Mu also had his own thoughts. The collection of love was not divided into big or small love. Li Mu couldn't make Lu Hanyan fall in love with him, but he could make the people love and respect him. These 2 kinds of love were different in nature, but they had the same effect on condensing the soul. However, just as he walked out of the county government and was about to patrol, he was stopped by Zhang Shan. Li Mu asked, "Is there anything else?" Zhang Shan caught up from behind and said, "Don't go yet. The county magistrate is looking for you." "The county magistrate is looking for me?" Li Mu's face showed a trace of doubt. He asked, "Why is he looking for me?" Zhang Shan shook his head and said, "I don't know. It might have something to do with the people from the county government." Li Mu went to the front hall of the county government and saw that Li Si was also there. The Zhang County magistrates were chatting happily with several officers from the county government. Li Mu walked in and asked, "Sir, what's the matter?" Zhang County magistrate stepped forward and said with a smile, "In the past few months, you've done a lot for the people. You even exposed the conspiracy of the Dongxian heretical cultivation and saved North County from a catastrophe. I saw it all. This time, Constable Wu unfortunately died in the line of duty. I wanted you to take over his position." Hearing this, Li Mu hurriedly said, "Sir, please reconsider. I'm too weak. I haven't even completely refined the 7 souls. I'm afraid I can't take on such a heavy responsibility." Li Mu was very clear about his own abilities. To be able to be a constable, one had to be at least in the spirit-condensing realm. It wasn't strange for them to be in the spirit-condensing realm. They were often disciples of famous sects like Li Qing, Hanja, and Huiyuan. Not only did they have high cultivation, but they also had all kinds of unique skills. At present, Li Mu was far from them. Zhang County magistrates shook his head and said, "Although I think highly of you, I'm afraid I can't give you such a heavy responsibility now." Li Mu was puzzled. He didn't know what he meant. Zhang County magistrates pointed to the 3 officers and said, "These people are here on the orders of the county government to deliver an official document." Li Mu faintly sensed that something bad was going to happen. He asked, "What official document?" Zhang County magistrates said, "When the zombies broke out in Zhou County, it was you who suggested that glutinous rice could restrain the zombies. I told the county government about this idea. After the county government ordered people to carry it out, it greatly suppressed the spread of the zombie disaster in Zhou County. Otherwise, even more people would have died in Zhou County. This time, you were the first to discover the matter with Master Qianhuan and promptly reported it. Only then could the experts of the Fulu school act as soon as possible and completely kill this person. Although you didn't directly participate, your contribution can't be erased. Li Mu asked. So, Zhang County Magistrate said with a smile. So, the county government not only rewarded you with the courage and soul power to cultivate, but also prepared to transfer you to the county government. There, your monthly salary will be double. I congratulate you first. Great Zhou had a vast territory, but there were only 36 counties. North County was huge, and the area of Yangqiu County was much larger than the county-level administrative regions of the future. Yangqiu County was at least a few hundred miles away from the county capital of North County. Li Mu's family was in Yangqiu County, and his friends were also in Yangqiu County. There was no need for him to go so far away for an extra 500 copper coins a month. Ever since he met Lu Hanyan, Li Mu was like a fine horse meeting a talent scout. Whether it was publishing books or opening a shop, everything was very smooth. Every minute was worth a few hundred copper coins, and there was no need for him to go to the county capital. He asked tentatively, "Can I just ask for the reward and not go to the county capital?" Li Mu was at the crucial moment of condensing his soul and soul. He still needed soul power and courage. If he could not waste it, he would not waste it. When an official from the county government heard this, he snorted coldly and said, "What do you think the county government's order is? Can you take half and leave half?" Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Then I don't want any of them." The job of constable was not a good job to begin with. Lu Hanyan had long advised Li Mu to resign and follow her. If it was not for the convenience of cultivation and also the ability to do something for the people, such as punishing the strong and upholding justice, he would have long hugged Lu Hanyan's thigh and begged her to take him away. The official glanced at Li Mu and said, "We have conveyed the county government's order. You are to report to the county government in a month. If you don't come by the time, you will have to bear the consequences." With that, the three of them flicked their sleeves and left. Jianghu County magistrates looked at Li Mu and asked in confusion, "Yangqiu County is still too small. This is a great opportunity for you. It will be very beneficial for your future cultivation. Why don't you want to go to the county capital?" Li Mu sighed and said, "I have feelings for this place." Feelings? Jianghu County magistrates thought for a moment and suddenly understood. He said, "I understand. You have feelings for the people in the county government, not the county government. However, Miss Qing is a student of the Fulu school. The county government has no authority to order her around. You are an official of the Great Show. As long as you are in the county government, you have to listen to the county government's orders. Unless you don't want to be a constable." Li Mu did not answer immediately. He said, "Let me think about this matter." Li Si stood there for a while. Finally, he could not help but ask, "Sir, there's nothing for me to do here, right? If there's nothing for you, why did I call you here?" Jianghu County magistrates glanced at him and said, "You and Li Mu are the same. In a month, report to the county government. Why should I go?" Li Si did not understand. He said, "I didn't make any contributions. The county government promoted Li Mu, not me." Jianghu County magistrate said, "The person who gave you this order was not the county government, but the county minister." Li Si was stunned for a moment. Then he said decisively, "Sir, I want to resign." Jianghu County magistrates asked, "What will you eat and use after you resign? Are you going to rely on brothels and live off women for the rest of your life?" Li Si nodded and said, "The doctor said that my stomach is not good. I can only live off women for the rest of my life." Jianghu County magistrate smiled and said, "It's useless even if you resign. The county minister means that you have to go whether you want to or not. There are only two choices in front of you." Li Si hurriedly asked, "What's the other choice?" Jianghu County magistrate said, "You can choose to go by yourself or be tied up." Hearing the bad news, Li Si looked like a frosted eggplant. After he left the front hall, he sat listlessly in the duty room. Zhang Shan heard this and sighed. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't asked you for help, this wouldn't have happened." Li Si shook his head and said, it's not enough for a beast like Xiao Yong to die 1,000 or 10,000 times. If I could do it all over again, would still kill him. Zhang Shan asked, then what are you going to do? Li Si thought for a moment and said, I'll take it one step at a time. Zhang Shan looked at Li Mu and asked, what about you, Li Mu? What are you going to do? Li Mu shook his head and said, I haven't thought about it yet. Putting aside the emotional factors, going to the county city would do him more good than harm. Yangqiu County was only a small county. As Li Mu's cultivation improved, he would be able to obtain fewer cultivation resources from here. The county city was the capital of a county. Naturally, the cultivation resources would not be the same. Li Mu still had 2 spirits that had yet to condense. There would be more opportunities if he went to the county city. However, it was impossible to put aside the emotional factors for this kind of thing. He couldn't see Li Qing at the yamen. He couldn't see Lu Hanyan and Wan Wan at the yamen. He also couldn't visit Su He often. Such a life was meaningless. Zhang Shan sighed and said, it's a pity that the county governor didn't let me go. In the county city, my monthly salary would be doubled. Li Mu asked, the county city is hundreds of miles away from here. Don't you want your wife? Zhang Shan said helplessly, of course I want my wife. But I also need to earn money. The salary from the county yamen is too little. It's enough to support the 2 of us, but how can we afford to have a child? Li Mu and Li Si each had their fill. The whole family wasn't hungry. Zhang Shan loved money as much as his life because he had a family behind him. Li Mu wondered if he should discuss with Lu Hanyan when he went back and help him find a way to make money. It could be considered as doing his duty as a friend. As for whether or not to go to the county yamen, he still had to think about it. If he went, he would have to adapt to an unfamiliar life. Although there were more opportunities there, it was also accompanied by greater danger. If he didn't go, as a minor official of the county yamen, disobeying the orders of the county governor, his path as a constable was about to come to an end. Li Mu didn't have to be a constable. However, as a minor official, it would allow him to get close to the people. It would be easier for him to gain the love and respect of the people and then obtain psyche power. At this moment, he was faced with the problem of making a choice. Li Qing walked into the duty room. She seemed to have something on her mind. She sat in her seat and her eyes were a little unfocused. After a while, she turned to look at Li Mu and asked, I heard from Lord Zhang that the county governor wants to promote you to the county city. This is a rare opportunity for you. The county yamen has a lot of cultivation resources, spiritual jades, fulu, elixirs, magic weapons, and supernatural powers. You can obtain all of them through meritorious service. Li Mu shook his head and said, I don't want to go. Li Qing asked, why? Li Mu said, I'm used to following you. If you don't go, I won't go either. Li Qing's eyes lost focus for a moment. Then she shook her head and said, in half a month, my training in the Yangqiu County government will end. Li Mu was stunned and asked, are you going back to the sect? Chapter 123. Li Qing nodded slightly and said, my training in the county government has already ended. In half a month, the school will send a new disciple. The disciples of the Fulu school could not always remain in the local government. Li Mu had long known that this day would come, but he did not expect it to come so quickly. Li Qing looked at him and said, after I leave, you must be careful on your own. Li Mu came back to his senses and smiled. Boss, be at ease. I am no longer the same person as before. Li Qing was silent for a moment, then said, in these past few months, you have become a completely different person. Sometimes, I also wonder if there is another soul in your body. Li Mu let out a breath and said, the previous Li Mu was truly dead. The one standing in front of you right now is the reborn Li Mu. If it were not for the 1,000 illusions master killing me once, perhaps I would not have changed so much. The current you is more responsible and more righteous. You are truly much better than the previous you. Li Qing was silent for a while, then looked at him again and asked, will you go to the county government? A quarter of an hour ago, Li Mu had an incomparably sufficient reason for not going to the county government. But now, his reason did not seem so sufficient. Li Mu thought for a while, then nodded. I will. After all, there are more opportunities there. I want to condense the other 2 souls as soon as possible. That's fine. Li Qing looked at him and warned, the county capital is not like the county capital. The cases there will be even more troublesome, and the criminals you will encounter will also be more formidable. You must be careful. This half a month was the fastest half a month that Li Mu had passed since he came to this world. In the past few months, there had been no end to the murder cases in the county, but recently, there had not even been a small case of theft. 15 days had passed in this sort of calm. Li Mu came to the guardroom early in the morning and saw Zhang Shan and Li Si standing at the door. Their ears were pressed against the door and they were acting suspiciously. He didn't know what they were doing. He walked over and was about to ask when Zhang Shan suddenly gestured for him to keep quiet. He pointed inside the duty room and didn't say anything. Li Mu slowly walked to their side. He did not stick to the door. As a cultivator, their 5 senses would be greatly enhanced. He had also begun to cultivate his 6 senses. Standing here, he could clearly hear the conversation in the guard room. Inside the room, Li Qing stood up and looked at Han Zhe. She asked, "What can I do for you, Constable Han?" Han Zhe forced a smile and said, "Junior Sister Li, even if we're not from the same sect, we're still fellow disciples. It shouldn't be too much for you to call me senior brother, right?" Li Qing was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Senior brother Han, if you have something to say, just say it." Han Zhe asked, "Junior Sister Li, you've been in the soul refining and soul condensing realms for a long time these past few years. You should be consolidating your foundation. You want to wait until you reach the spirit condensing realm and use the shortest amount of time to break through to the transcendent realm, right?" Li Qing nodded and didn't deny it. If that's the case, Junior Sister Li should be cultivating in seclusion after returning to the sect. Han Zhe took a deep breath and suddenly said, "There's something I've wanted to say to Junior Sister Li for a long time. If I don't say it now, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to do so after returning to the sect." He looked into Li Qing's eyes and gathered his courage. "Junior Sister Li, I've liked you for a long time. Are you willing to become my Tao companion?" Li Qing shook her head without hesitation. She said, "Sorry, Senior Brother Han." Han Zhe's face paled. Then he clenched his teeth and asked, "Is it because of Li Mu? You like Li Mu, right?" Li Qing shook her head. "I only have cultivation in my heart." Not long after, Han Zhe walked out of the duty room in a daze. He glanced at Li Mu and left. Zhang Shan patted Li Mu's shoulder and sighed. Li Mu walked into the duty room and saw that Li Qing had already packed a bag. He asked, "Boss, are you leaving today?" "I'll leave in a while." Li Qing nodded. "You don't have to call me boss anymore," Li Mu smiled. "I'm used to it. I can't change it in a short time." He walked to Li Qing's side and suddenly said, "Actually, I also have something to say to boss for a long time." A trace of panic flashed through Li Qing's eyes. She asked calmly, "What is it?" Li Mu said, "Thank you." Li Qing breathed a sigh of relief and asked, "Thank me for what?" Li Mu said, "Boss, thank you for teaching me cultivation. During this time, you cared about me, protected me, gave me bai, and collected courage for me." "As I said, you are my subordinate," Li Qing said. "If you have your own subordinates in the future, you have to be responsible for them." "I will," Li Mu smiled and said, "I'll go out first. When you leave, I'll see you off." Li Qing looked at his back as he walked out. A trace of hesitation flashed across her face. She looked down at the green rainbow in her hand. Her gaze gradually became firm again. When Li Mu walked out of the duty room, Han Zhe stood in the courtyard and said to him, "Today, I'm going back to the sect. I don't know if we'll be fated to meet again in the future." Although Li Mu and Han Zhe didn't like each other, they were still comrades who had fought side by side many times. Li Mu lightly punched him on the shoulder and said, "Take care." Xianxia sighed and said, although I lost, you didn't win either. Li Mu shook his head and said, I didn't bet anything with you. Xianxia looked at him and said, we may not meet again in the future. Let's go out for a drink. After all, they had gone through life and death together. They were about to separate and might not have the chance to meet again in the future. Xianxia invited them to the best restaurant in Jianghu County. Li Mu didn't hesitate and agreed. Zhang Shan would never miss such an occasion. After all, it could save him money for a meal. He dragged Li Si along for a meal. Xianxia didn't say anything about this. After drinking 2 cups of wine, he felt a little dizzy. He gave Li Si a thumbs up and said, in this yamen, I don't admire anyone else, but I admire you the most. You can sleep with any girl in the brothel. You don't even have to pay. His cultivation was not low, but his alcohol tolerance was average. After drinking 2 cups, he began to talk non-stop. Actually, when we were in the sect, I noticed junior sister Li very early on. She's the most hardworking and serious cultivator in her branch. She's even more serious than senior brother Qin, I should have known. She only has cultivation in her heart. I lost. Li Mu, you didn't win either. Huh, after a few cups of wine, Xianxia lay on the table, unconscious. Zhang Shan nudged Li Mu with his arm and said, boss is leaving. You really don't intend to express your feelings to her before she leaves. Even Xianxia. Don't give me any ideas. Li Si stuffed a drumstick into his mouth and said, don't you know boss? Since boss has decided to leave, it's useless no matter what Li Mu does or says. Li Mu smiled, picked up the wine cup and drank it in one gulp. After being together for so long, he knew Li Qing's character better than anyone else. If he was really like Xianxia, it would only make a good parting not feel like a parting. His feelings for Li Qing were admiration and gratitude, but if it was to say that it was love between a man and a woman, it was probably not to that extent. If the two of them had been together for a little longer, they might have broken through that layer of relationship. Unfortunately, there was no chance. Li Si sipped his wine and sighed, what a pity, Xianxia was drunk. Li Si and Zhang Shan helped him to the yamen. Li Mu returned home and found Wanwan holding Xiao Bai on the swing in the yard. The friendship between girls always came very quickly. Even if one was a human and the other was a fox, as long as it was a female fox. Lu Hanyan was in the shop and did not come back. Li Mu cooked 2 bowls of noodles for them. Xiao Bai could not use chopsticks because it had not transformed. Wanwan ate a mouthful and fed it another mouthful. Seeing that they were getting along so well, Li Mu was relieved. He was in the county yamen during the day, and Lu Hanyan was in the shop. In the past, only Wanwan was at home. Now that there was a little fox that could talk, they could keep each other company. In the county yamen, Li Si and Zhang Shan helped Xianxia back to his place and went back to the duty room. Li Qing looked at them and said, in the future, you'd better not drink when you're in the yamen. The new arrestor may be stricter than me. Zhang Shan hurriedly said, just this once. Li Si suddenly looked at Li Qing and asked, boss, have you really thought it through? Li Qing asked, thought about what? Li Si said, cultivation or love, which is more important? Zhang Shan looked at Li Si in confusion and asked, what are you talking about? Li Si shook his head and said with a sigh, in love, it is always easier to take a step back than to take a step forward. If you take a step back now and regret it later, you will have to take more than 1 step forward. By the time you regret it, perhaps someone has already taken a step ahead of you. Li Qing held the cyan rainbow sword so tightly that her knuckles turned slightly white because of the force. Images of what they had experienced in the past few months flashed through her mind. Finally, she took a deep breath and her eyes returned to calmness. In this calmness, there was a trace of determination, a trace of pain, and a trace of hatred hidden in the deepest part of her heart that no one had ever discovered. She lowered her head and said silently in her heart, wait for me. At the entrance of the county yamen, Jianghu county magistrates personally sent Li Qing and Xianxia out of the county yamen. He cupped his hands and bowed to the 2 of them, saying, Constable Li, Constable Han, on behalf of the county Yamen and the people of Yangqiu County, I thank the two of you for your contributions to Yangqiu County during this period of time. I hope the two of you will have a smooth cultivation in the future." Hanja cupped his hands in return. "Thank you, Lord Zhang." Li Mu, Zhang Shan, and Li Si stood together. They smiled at Li Qing and said, "Goodbye, boss." Li Qing's gaze swept across them and finally stopped on Li Mu's face. She said, "Goodbye." The two figures gradually disappeared from Li Mu's sight. The crowd had already dispersed. Zhang Shan patted Li Mu's shoulder and said, "Let's go back." Li Si walked in front of Li Mu and comforted him. "Boss and we are not people from the same world. Forget about her. In fact, Lady Lu is not bad. She is more suitable for you than boss. If you really can't do it, there is still that little girl." Lu Hanyan was good at both the hall and the kitchen. She was good at singing and dancing. Compared to Li Qing's immortal aura, she had more of a human aura. However, she had no intention of marrying in this life. When Li Mu returned home from the Yamen, she had already prepared dinner. She even used a stack of books to raise Xiao Bai's chair so that it could lie on the chair and eat with them. After eating together for such a long time, he and Lu Hanyan had a tacit understanding. If Li Mu cooked, she would wash the pots and dishes. If she cooked, Li Mu would wash the pots and dishes. Li Mu moved the dishes to the kitchen. Lu Hanyan followed him and stood at the kitchen door. She asked, "You didn't say anything during dinner. You didn't eat much. Is there something on your mind?" Li Mu said, "Boss left." Lu Hanyan was surprised. "Arrestor left? Where did he go?" "Back to the sect." "Are you coming back?" "No." Lu Hanyan was stunned. She walked into the kitchen and rolled up her sleeves. She said, "How about I wash the dishes? You go rest." Li Mu shook his head. "It's okay." Lu Hanyan rolled down her sleeves. After thinking for a while, she looked at Li Mu again and said, "Do you want me to drink with you?" Chapter 124. When Lu Hanyan was happy, she would drink a little wine, but she didn't drink much. Seeing that Li Mu didn't eat much at dinner, she specially made 2 new dishes for Li Mu to go with the wine. She poured a cup of wine for Li Mu and said, "There are plenty of fish in the sea. With your qualifications, what kind of woman can't you find? Think about your big house. Don't you want to marry several wives? How can you be depressed because of this setback?" Li Mu was just a little sad because of Li Qing's departure. He wasn't like Han Zhe, who was heartbroken. Lu Hanyan obviously misunderstood. It was rare for her to be so considerate. Li Mu raised his wine cup and clinked it with hers. He said, "Things aren't like what you think." "I know." Lu Hanyan went along with Li Mu's wishes. She said, "The girls in the music house and the opera house are young and beautiful. As long as you don't dislike their status, I can help you build a bridge." Wan Wan ran in from outside and exclaimed, "Miss." Lu Hanyan gave her a look, and the little maid reluctantly walked out again. Lu Hanyan continued, "If you don't like them, I'll marry Wan Wan to you in 2 years. Anyway, her heart is with you," Li Mu said helplessly. "You really misunderstood. Let's not talk about it." Lu Hanyan filled his wine cup and said, "Tonight, we won't rest until we're drunk." Li Mu's alcohol tolerance was a little better than Han Zhe's, but it was only average. Lu Hanyan's alcohol tolerance seemed to be better than Li Mu's, but not by much. She deliberately helped Li Mu drown his sorrows with wine. The small jar of wine she brought was quickly emptied. Li Mu didn't know when he lost consciousness. He only knew that he and Lu Hanyan both drank a lot. When he woke up, he was already on his bed. The strange thing was that even though he was not deliberately cultivating, the mana in his body was circulating at a very fast speed. It was even faster than when Li Mu was actively cultivating. He opened his eyes and saw that he and Lu Hanyan were sleeping face to face on the bed. Both of their clothes were intact. Lu Hanyan's shoes were still on her feet, so nothing should have happened. This allowed Li Mu to breathe a sigh of relief. Then, he began to search for the cause of the abnormal flow of mana. Soon, Li Mu discovered the source of all this. Unknowingly, he and Lu Hanyan's hands were clasped together and their fingers were intertwined. The mana in Li Mu's body circulated on its own. From his left hand, it was transferred to Lu Hanyan's right hand, and then from Lu Hanyan's left hand back to his body. During this transmission process, the mana circulated very quickly. This meant that the growth of the mana would also be faster than him cultivating alone. There was no doubt that this must be because one of them was pure yang and the other was pure yin. Yin and yang attracted each other. Cultivating like this for a day was at least comparable to Li Mu's 3 days of cultivation. Opposite Li Mu, the sleeping Lu Hanyan's eyelashes trembled and she suddenly opened her eyes. She had just woken up and her eyes were still a little confused. But when she saw Li Mu opposite her, she suddenly sobered up. The next moment, she remembered what happened last night. Li Mu's sweetheart left. In order to comfort him who was heartbroken, she deliberately accompanied him to drink, and then drank to the bed. Fortunately, there was nothing wrong with her body. Her clothes were intact and she didn't even take off her shoes. They should have just slept on the same bed. Although nothing happened, her fingers were intertwined with his, and they were tightly holding each other's hands. Lu Hanyan subconsciously withdrew her hand and frowned the next moment. When their fingers were intertwined, there was a very comfortable feeling in her body. But when she withdrew her hand, this feeling immediately disappeared. The strong contrast made her feel lost and frustrated. Thus, she silently put her finger back and experienced that comfortable feeling again. She looked at Li Mu with her eyes wide open and asked, "What's going on?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "I don't know." Lu Hanyan could also feel the growth of the mana in her body. After thinking for a while, she said in surprise, "Is this dual cultivation?" Li Mu, maybe. Although he was not very sure, the mana in his body at the moment was indeed running faster than usual. This situation was not much different from the description of the growth of mana in the book when yin and yang dual cultivation. The only difference was that the dual cultivation in the book required the two people's souls and bodies to merge into one. Perhaps it was because Li Mu and Lu Hanyan were not really dual cultivation. They were just holding hands, so the growth of their mana was not as exaggerated as the real dual cultivation described in the book. Lu Hanyan was puzzled and said, "But, didn't the book say that dual cultivation requires that?" Li Mu, maybe, this is also a kind of dual cultivation method, but it's not as effective as that. "Young master, young miss, you're awake." Wan ran in from outside and said, "Last night you drank too much and slept on the bed hand in hand. I couldn't pull you away, so I could only let young miss sleep here for the night." Wan's words came to an abrupt halt. She looked at Li Mu and Lu Hanyan's tightly clasped hands and said in disbelief, "Young miss, young master, you." Lu Hanyan quickly let go and got off the bed and said, "Nothing happened between us. Next time, just wake me up directly." Wan said sadly, "I did, but I couldn't wake you up." Lu Hanyan rubbed her eyebrows and said, "Let's go back. There are still many things to do in the shop." Wan and Lu Hanyan left. Xiao Bai ran in with a wet towel in its mouth and whimpered to Li Mu. Li Mu took the towel from its mouth and casually wiped his face. Xiao Bai took the towel away again. He sat on the bed and felt the abnormal growth of the spiritual power in his body last night. He licked his lips and felt like he hadn't had enough yet. Humans were born to like to take shortcuts. If they could use less time and less energy to do something easily, no one would want to go through so much trouble. This was also the reason why the cultivation world never lacked heretical cultivation. It was because this was the weakness of human nature. Not only humans, but any life with a bit of intelligence would find it difficult to resist this temptation. Compared to harming lives, through merit and psychokinesis, it could also speed up cultivation, but the process was much more difficult. After all, it wasn't difficult to do a good deed, but it was difficult to do good deeds every day. This was even more difficult than the normal guidance of cultivation. Compared to these, the advantages of dual cultivation were simply too many. There was no need to harm lives, and there was no need to do good deeds every day. The growth of spiritual power was fast and the process was very comfortable. Li Mu already had such an effect when he held hands with Lu Hanyan. If he did what dual cultivation should really do, how fast would his cultivation speed be? No wonder the book said that if one met a body of pure yin and pure yang, without dual cultivation, it would be an extreme waste of heaven and earth's resources. After experiencing it once, even Li Mu felt that it was a pity. After Lu Hanyan left, he sat on the bed and felt uncomfortable all over. His heart was also throbbing. How could this be? Li Mu was shocked and immediately thought of a possibility. He couldn't be addicted to Lu Hanyan, right? With this thought, Li Mu immediately channeled his spiritual power and recited the heart-calming mantra. Only then did the throbbing in his heart gradually calm down. At the same time, in the music house of the Yunyan Pavilion, Lu Hanyan was also a little restless in the zither room. She stood up at times and anxiously paced around the room. Then, she sat down again and recited the heart-calming mantra. It took her a lot of effort to calm down. She sat down again and plucked the zither strings, wanting to use the music to calm her heart. However, her music was soon disrupted. How could this be? Lu Hanyan covered her face and lay on the zither in despair. Why did Li Mu's figure keep appearing in her mind? She shook her head hard, but still couldn't get Li Mu out of her mind. Jianghu County Government. Li Mu sat on a chair and closed the book in his hand. Occasionally, Lu Hanyan's figure appeared in his mind, causing him to be unable to concentrate. An hour later, the book in his hand only flipped 2 pages. Li Mu lightly slapped himself and muttered, "I must be crazy." This morning, he couldn't help but think about Lu Hanyan. The number of times he thought about Lu Hanyan was more than twice the number of times he thought about Li Qing. Li Qing had just left and he was already thinking about another woman. This made Li Mu doubt himself. Could it be that he was essentially the same as Li Si? Li Mu hurriedly shook his head and expelled this terrifying thought from his mind. Sitting in old Wang's room, he began to focus on refining the evil from monk Qinhuan. Wu Bo was dead. Li Qing and Hanja had returned to Fulu school. In everyone's eyes, old Wang had also died of old age. Before the new constable arrived, the county yamen was clearly understaffed. Jianghu County magistrates temporarily handed over the task of household registration and files to Li Mu. After all, he had been in charge for a period of time in the past and was more familiar with these matters. However, during this period of time, there hadn't been any major cases in the county. Li Mu didn't have anything to do. Although he had lost the bet with Li Si, after Li Qing left, Li Si didn't mention it again. This way, Li Mu had enough time to do his own things. The prefectural governor had rewarded him with a lot of courage and sealed it in jade. It was just right for Li Mu to refine the evil. Li Mu stayed in the yamen until noon and prepared to go home. This was half an hour earlier than the time he usually went home. He didn't know why, but he really wanted to see Lu Hanyan as soon as possible today. When he walked out of the duty room and saw Lu Hanyan standing in the yard of the yamen, Li Mu almost thought that he was hallucinating because he missed Lu Hanyan too much. When she saw Li Mu, Lu Hanyan's restless heart suddenly calmed down. She pretended to look at Li Mu as if nothing had happened and said, "I just happened to pass by the county yamen, so I came in to take a look. Are you done with your work? Do you want to go back together?" Li Mu nodded and said, "Let's go. It seems like there's no more food at home. We'll go to the market to buy some." Seeing the two of them walk out of the yamen side by side, Zhang Shan clicked his tongue and said, "I really envy Li Mu. He can eat Lady Lu's cooking every day." Li Si's face showed that he understood. He shook his head and said, "Like I said, if you don't want it, there will always be someone who wants it." Chapter 125. Li Mu had been restless the entire morning, but when he saw Lu Hanyan, his heart suddenly calmed down. This was something that had never happened before. Without a doubt, this had something to do with what had happened last night. He turned his head to look at Lu Hanyan and asked, "The Yunyan Pavilion is closer to home?" Why did you pass by the county yamen? Lu Hanyan naturally wouldn't tell Li Mu that it was because she missed him and couldn't help but come over to take a look. Her eyes looked around and said as if nothing had happened, "Can't I just pass by for a walk?" Li Mu looked at her flickering eyes and seemed to realize something. He said in surprise, "Could it be that you also?" Lu Hanyan said, "What about me?" Li Mu went straight to the point and asked, "Have you been thinking about me this morning?" "Stop dreaming. Why would I think about you? There's no such thing." Lu Hanyan said mockingly. She suddenly looked at Li Mu and asked, "Could it be that you also?" Li Mu nodded. Lu Hanyan's face was blank. Why would it be like this? Li Mu said, "I think it might be because of what happened last night." The book didn't elaborate on what would happen when a pure yin body and a pure yang body were together, other than being able to increase their magical power through dual cultivation. After all, the probability of a man and a woman with these two types of physiques being together was extremely low. The probability of them coincidentally getting along as neighbors and coincidentally getting drunk and sleeping in the same bed was infinitely close to zero. Li Mu and Lu Hanyan's situation was something that no one had ever encountered before. It was only at this moment that Li Mu deeply understood what the book meant by a match made in heaven. They were like two magnets. Even if they were far apart, the reaction of the yin and yang bodies would still firmly attract them together. Just lying on the same bed for one night, he couldn't help but think about her hundreds of times. After a long time, Li Mu might really fall head over heels in love with her. Lu Hanyan obviously realized the seriousness of the matter and asked worriedly, "What should we do?" Li Mu thought for a while and said, "When you miss me, recite the clear heart formula." Lu Hanyan frowned and said, "But I can't recite the clear heart chant all the time, right?" Li Mu asked in surprise, "You're thinking about me all the time?" Lu Hanyan glared at him angrily and said, "It's all your fault. Why did you insist on drinking wine?" Li Mu was speechless for a while. Although it was Lu Hanyan who proposed to drink last night, she also did it for Li Mu. Li Mu blamed her at this time. It was a bit too inhumane. He didn't expect that the yin-yang body would be so strange. Just practicing hand in hand once was enough to make him addicted. He thought for a while and said, "It can't always be like this. As long as we don't see each other for a while, it should be fine." Lu Hanyan rolled her eyes at him and said, "Do you think I want to see you every day? We're neighbors. How can we not see each other?" Li Mu said, "In half a month, I will be transferred to the county office. At that time, you won't see me anymore." After Li Qing left, Li Mu thought carefully and finally decided to leave. The 10 provinces world was so big. If he stayed in the small Yangqiu county all his life, it would be a waste. Whether it was the condensing of the two souls or the cultivation resources after condensing the soul, Yangqiu county could no longer satisfy his needs. Lu Hanyan was stunned and asked, "You're leaving?" Li Mu nodded and said, "This is the order of the county governor. It came half a month ago." Lu Hanyan followed Li Mu silently for a while before saying, "Congratulations, Lord Li. You've been promoted." Li Mu said, "In this half a month, I will finish writing strange stories from a Chinese studio. I will leave the haunted house to you." Lu Hanyan pursed her lips and said, "You speak as if you didn't leave it to me in the past." Li Mu handed her a piece of jade and said, "This is a reward from the county governor. I haven't used it all. The remaining energy inside is enough for you to condense another soul. However, it's best to rely less on external forces for cultivation. The Dharma power you cultivate yourself will be more solid and the power you can unleash will be greater." Lu Hanyan said impatiently, I know. At night, Li Mu sat cross-legged in the courtyard. Xiao Bai lay beside him. Strands of spiritual qi were separated from the surrounding void and entered the bodies of the human and the demon. At a certain moment, Li Mu's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. He murmured, 9 cycles of pure qi, soul suppressing evil, heavenly beast guarding the door, delicate girl guarding the pass. Filth removal, condense. In the next moment, he felt some subtle changes in his body. The Dharma power in his body had also increased significantly. After half a year, he had condensed 5 of the 7 souls. Li Mu had only used a portion of the boldness bestowed by the county governor to successfully condense the soul of filth removal. Following that, the 2 emotions and 2 souls were Shun Qing and Shun Qing. He could easily refine them without the assistance of boldness. The difficulty lay in collecting them. Li Mu's Dharma power after condensing 5 souls was no weaker than a cultivator who had condensed 7 souls. After condensing the filth removal soul, his Dharma power was about the same as a cultivator who had just entered the 2nd realm. He tried to write Fu Lu that he could not write in the past. He discovered that he could already successfully write Fu Lu like the soul-searching talisman, the divine travel talisman, and the likes. As for the 3rd word of the 9 syllables mantra, he was still unable to grasp it. However, as his Dharma power increased by leaps and bounds and his daily practice, his mastery of the confrontation formula was no longer the same as before. If he encountered any jumping zombies now, even if they moved quickly, Li Mu was confident that he could kill them in one strike. And when he condensed the 3 souls to a certain extent and condensed them into a god, the lightning technique would undergo another transformation. It would evolve from white lightning to purple lightning. Even a transcendent cultivator would not dare to take it head-on. In this half a month, Li Mu had gone to the Bay of Clear Water twice, but he did not see Su He. The hut by the water was still there, but Su He was not in it. She was probably refining the soul power of the 1,000 illusions venerable in some hidden place. He did not know how long it would take for her to completely refine it. Perhaps before Li Mu left, he would not be able to see her again. Lu Hanyan was not in a good mood these days. Wan Wan was also constantly frowning and seemed to have a lot on her mind. One day when they were eating, she finally could not help but look at Li Mu and ask softly, "Young master, after you leave, will you come back?" Li Mu stroked the young maid's hair and said with a smile, "Of course, I will come back to see you at least once a month." With his current cultivation and the divine travel talisman, he could cover a distance of several hundred li in just over half a day. With Li Mu's promise, Wan Wan's mood improved a little. Li Mu then looked at Xiao Bai and said, "In 2 days, I will send you back to the mountain." Xiao Bai raised her head and said firmly, "I have not finished repaying my debt of gratitude. Wherever my benefactor goes, I will follow." Li Mu shook his head and said, "The prefectural city is not like the county city. There are many powerful cultivators there. You will be in danger if you go. Besides, when I saved you, it was only a small matter. You have already repaid your debt of gratitude these days." Xiao Bai did not listen to Li Mu, which was rare. She said, "Perhaps to my benefactor, this was only a small matter. But if not for you, I would have died at the hands of the hunters. My benefactor's kindness is the debt of saving my life. It is not something that can be repaid by sweeping the floor and wiping the table. When the little fox was obedient, she was very obedient. When she was stubborn, she was also very stubborn. Other than her appetite, this was the biggest difference between her and Wan Wan. Li Mu could not reject her directly, so he said, "You can't repay me now. After you transform, come to the prefectural city to find me." Lu Hanyan thought about it carefully, then raised her head and threw Li Mu a look of disdain. "What is it that can't be done before you transform?" Lu Hanyan thought about it carefully, then looked up and threw Li Mu a look of disdain. Li Mu pretended not to see it. What kind of place was the prefectural city? It was the capital of the North County. There were countless cultivators stationed in the city. It was not a place where a little demon in the embryonic body transformation realm should go. Even if she was not worried, Li Mu was not. Her benefactor was not chasing her away. He just disliked her because her cultivation was too low and she could not transform. The little fox thought about it and could only nod obediently. "Don't worry, my benefactor. I will cultivate well in the mountains and try to find you as soon as possible." Li Mu heaved a sigh of relief. Although Xiao Bai's talent was not bad, she was still too young. If she did not have any fortuitous encounters, it would be at least a few years or more before she could transform. Even if she could find him by then, it would be a matter of time. Today's meal was still cooked by Lu Hanyan. After Li Mu finished eating, he went to the kitchen to wash the dishes alone. Lu Hanyan leaned against the kitchen door and asked, "When are you leaving?" Li Mu said, "In a few days." Lu Hanyan said, "Then you are not in a hurry to leave." Li Mu heard the deeper meaning in her words and asked, "What do you want to do?" Lu Hanyan asked, "Do you want to cultivate together again?" Li Mu had already experienced the attraction of yin and yang. It was very boring for him to cultivate alone, but if he cultivated with Lu Hanyan, he would be addicted. After cultivating together once, he would want to do it a second time, a third time. It was not easy to forget that feeling. Li Mu hesitated and said, "Have you forgotten the feeling after the last cultivation?" Lu Hanyan had already restrained herself for a few days. She said unhappily, "Anyway, you are leaving in a few days. This is the last time. Just tell me you are not coming." Li Mu thought about it and said, "Wait for me to finish washing the dishes." Lu Hanyan walked in and said, "I will help you." A moment later, in Li Mu's room, the two of them sat cross-legged on the bed with their hands pressed against each other. Li Mu circulated the mana in his body into Lu Hanyan's body. After circulating it once, it returned to his body. This kind of incomplete dual cultivation, circulating one cycle of mana like this was equivalent to 3 cycles of cultivation by himself. However, although this method would increase the speed of cultivation, Li Mu's mind was filled with Lu Hanyan for the next day. Presumably, she was the same as him. The next day, after eating, Lu Hanyan glanced at Li Mu and asked, "Are you coming or not?" Li Mu said in surprise, "Didn't I say yesterday that that was the last time?" Lu Hanyan glanced at him and said, "Stop talking nonsense. Are you coming or not?" What a woman with no self-control. Li Mu complained in his heart and said, "I'm coming." The third day, Li Mu stood in the courtyard practicing his sword. Lu Hanyan walked in from outside and asked, "Coming?" Li Mu put down his sword and nodded. "I'm coming." The fourth day, Lu Hanyan flew over from the other side of the courtyard wall and gave Li Mu a look. Li Mu returned her look and silently walked towards the bedroom. The fifth day, Li Mu did not carry out incomplete dual cultivation with Lu Hanyan because he was leaving tomorrow. Today, he had to send Xiaobai back to the mountain. Chapter 126. Li Mu stuck on the divine travel talisman and hugged the little fox as he traversed through the dense forest. According to Xiaobai, its parents were killed by an even more powerful demon not long after it was born. It was Granny who raised it. A few other little foxes of the same clan grew up with it. Li Mu hugged it and asked, "Where is your home?" Xiaobai pointed ahead with its claws and said, "It's in the valley ahead." The fox clan was considered the weakest among the demons. They were not large in size and did not have sharp fangs or claws. They were at the bottom of the food chain. Therefore, when they cultivated, they had to avoid other ferocious beasts and demons. In Xiaobai's clan, only Granny was a 3-tailed demon fox. The rest were just little fox demons who had formed their embryos. This valley was considered hidden. When Li Mu carried Xiaobai to the entrance of the valley, Xiaobai jumped out of his arms and ran towards the valley while shouting happily, "Granny, Granny, I'm back." Li Mu's figure flashed and appeared in front of it instantly. Xiaobai stopped suddenly and asked in confusion, "Benefactor, what's wrong?" Li Mu said with a serious expression, "Be careful. Something's not right here. Come to me." Although there was no movement around him, he instinctively sensed danger. This was the biggest difference between cultivators who had refined the first soul and those who had not. Xiaobai jumped lightly and landed on Li Mu's shoulder. Li Mu held Bai and walked slowly into the valley ahead. As soon as he stepped into the valley, he smelled a strong stench of blood. Li Mu looked up and saw the corpse of a fox at a glance. His gaze moved forward again. Almost every few steps, there was a dead fox. In the area he could see, there were at least a dozen of them. The blood on these foxes had dried up. They had clearly been dead for a long time. A white figure jumped down from Li Mu's shoulder and ran to the corpse of a fox. She said with a trembling voice, "Sister Yingying, what's wrong with you? Wake up, Sister Yan Yan, Sister Yin. What's wrong? Wake up, it kept jumping around the corpses of these foxes. Its voice was trembling and it was on the verge of collapse. Li Mu looked at a fox corpse at his feet and frowned. Sword wound, the wounds on their bodies were flat and smooth. They had all been killed with a single strike. Monsters would not leave such wounds. It was very likely that they had died at the hands of human cultivators. Li Mu seemed to have thought of something. He circulated his magic power and used the Heaven's Eye technique. He saw that there was not a single soul in their bodies. The souls of demons would not dissipate so quickly. Furthermore, they had been dead for no more than 3 days. The first thing that came to Li Mu's mind was that there were cultivators who killed demons and took their souls. The reason why Ren Yuan's cultivation had improved so quickly was because Venerable Thousand Illusions had used countless demon souls to help him. Seeing so many corpses of its kind, Xiaobai had already collapsed to the ground. It cried, "Granny, where are you?" Li Mu sighed and asked, "Is there anything of your granny's here? Maybe we can find it with the Fulu." Xiaobai ran towards a cave in the distance. Li Mu found a futon where it had stopped. Xiaobai stretched out its front paw and wiped its eyes. It said with a choked voice, "Granny often cultivated here." Li Mu bent down and picked up a few fox hairs from the futon. The fox hairs were yellow and white. They did not have any luster. It was obvious that they were left behind by an old fox. Li Mu took out an immortal guiding talisman from his bosom. He mixed the fox fur into it and folded it into the shape of a paper crane. He then threw the paper crane into the air. The paper crane slowly flapped its wings and flew out of the cave. Li Mu carried Xiaobai and said, "Let's go. It should be nearby." He activated the divine travel talisman and ran out of the cave. He ran towards a certain direction. In a secluded forest, a few gray wolves were attacking an old fox. The old fox had gray fur. Its body was pierced by a sword and its aura was very weak. The gray wolves were very fast. When they attacked, they waved their claws and there was a faint sound of wind breaking. Even so, they could not hurt the old fox. However, when the old fox's claws landed on their bodies, they could not cause any fatal damage to them. One of the gray wolves bared its white fangs and sneered, "Old fox, you didn't expect that you would have such a day, did you? When I devour your body, I will be able to achieve human transformation." The old fox looked at the 5 gray wolves. Its eyes were filled with despair and sorrow. If it was not injured, it naturally would not care about these wolf demons that had not achieved human transformation. However, it was heavily injured by that human cultivator and was on the verge of death. For the past 3 days, its only belief was to persevere until Xiaobai returned. However, it did not expect that these wolf demons would still find it despite its heavy injuries. It forcefully mobilized a trace of dermic powers. A fox claw suffused with a dim light and smacked the head of a gray wolf that was attacking it. Bang! The gray wolf's head was smashed. It fell to the ground and twitched twice before it stopped breathing. As for the old fox, it was limp on the ground. It did not even have the strength to stand up. A trace of joy appeared in the eyes of the gray wolf leader. It said, "Attack together and kill it. This old fox's meat is good stuff." Smelling the fishy smell from the wolf's mouth, the old fox sighed and closed its eyes in despair. In the end, it could not wait for Xiaobai to return. Boom! The sound of thunder suddenly exploded in its ears. At the same time, it also felt a familiar aura. It opened its eyes and saw a white thunderbolt descending on the head of the Wolf King. The Wolf King was struck into charcoal on the spot and its soul scattered. The rest of the gray wolves were shocked by this sudden change. When they came back to their senses, they subconsciously wanted to escape, but they saw a white light flash in front of their eyes. The next moment, they saw their rapidly running bodies in front of their heads. 4 gray wolves were beheaded in an instant. Li Mu stretched out his hand. The Bai sword that was not stained with a trace of blood automatically flew back to his hand. Now, his mastery of the thunder technique and the art of sword manipulation had reached the point of perfection. He could kill a few molded demons with a wave of his hand. Grandma. Xiaobai saw the old fox and quickly ran over. The old fox's eyes were filled with gratification. It said with a smile, I didn't expect to see you before I die. Grandma, you won't die. You won't die. Xiaobai suddenly spat out a pill from its mouth and said, Grandma, quickly eat this pill. You'll be fine after you eat it. Li Mu shook his head. Even if he fed the old fox the pill that he did not consume, it would be of no use. The old fox's soul was already very weak. It was so weak that it could only survive. The reason why it was not dead yet was because of the mental power in its heart. Li Mu's hand glowed with a golden light. He sent it into the old fox's body. The golden light passed through the old fox's body and did not have any effect. Li Mu retracted his hand and said while shaking his head, What else do you have to say? Hurry up and say it. The old fox's spirit was slightly better. It nodded slightly at Li Mu and said, Thank you, benefactor. Li Mu walked to the side and extracted the spirit power from the bodies of the wolf demons that died under Bai Yi Jian's sword. Xiaobai hugged the old fox. Its black pearl-like eyes were filled with tears. It cried, Grandma, Sister Ying is dead. Sister Yan Yan is dead. Sister Yin is also dead. The old fox used its claws to stroke its head and said, They were killed by human cultivators. Promise me, before your cultivation is strong enough, don't avenge them. The old fox's claws brushed past. The image of a human cultivator appeared in Xiaobai's mind. It wiped its tears and gritted its teeth. Grandma, don't worry. I will definitely avenge them. The old fox coughed a few times and its breath became even weaker. It used its last bit of strength to turn its head and looked at Li Mu. Its eyes were filled with pleading. It did not speak, but Li Mu knew what it wanted to say. He nodded and said, Don't worry. I will take good care of Xiaobai. The old fox's only wish had been fulfilled. It used its front claws to grab Xiaobai and said happily, You have to listen to your benefactor. Stay by his side and serve him well. Xiaobai choked with sobs and nodded. She said sorrowfully, Grandma. The old fox's pupils began to dilate. In the final moment of its life, it poured all of its spirit power into Xiaobai's body. Under the impact of this powerful force, Xiaobai instantly fainted. In the nameless valley, Xiaobai knelt in front of a few protruding graves. It was as if she had lost her soul. Her originally white fur had become rather translucent. The old fox had been in human form for a long time. In a few more years, it might be able to condense a demon core and become a fourth realm demon cultivator. Most of its spirit power had been sealed in Xiaobai's body. Once she completely absorbed and refined it, it would be time for it to transform. Li Mu stood silently by its side, accompanying it silently. After an unknown period of time, it finally stood up and sniffed. It glanced at the graves one last time and said, Benefactor, let's go. Li Mu bent down and picked it up, slowly walking out of the mountain. He had originally wanted to send it home, but he never expected something like this to happen. Its entire clan had died tragically. Its only relative had died before its eyes. No matter what, Li Mu could not let it cultivate alone in the mountains. However, he was about to head to the provincial government. That was a completely unfamiliar place. Li Mu did not even know if he could take care of himself, let alone bring a little fairy with him. Even if he wanted to bring it with him, Li Mu had to first gain a firm foothold in the provincial capital and have the strength to protect it. When they returned home, Xiaobai was still immersed in grief. She silently returned to her room. A while later, Lu Hanyan walked over from next door. When she walked into the courtyard, she glanced at Li Mu. Li Mu knew what she meant. He said, I'm leaving in 2 days. After I leave, I have something to ask of you. You don't care about the shop, you don't care about the money from selling the books. You want me to save it for you. Haven't you asked me for a lot of things? Lu Hanyan rolled her eyes at him and said, Speak. What is it? P.S. I recommend the new book by the old ghost of the Black Mountain, White-Headed Demon Master. It doesn't matter if the protagonist is powerful or a good person. It also doesn't matter if he can slay demons or exorcise devils. What matters is that his actions must be flashy and his hair must float. Chapter 127. In the courtyard, Li Mu looked at Lu Hanyan and said, "After I leave, I hope you can help me take care of Xiao Bai." Lu Hanyan was stunned for a moment and said in surprise, "Didn't you send Xiao Bai back?" Li Mu sighed and said, "Something happened. Xiao Bai's clansmen and her grandmother have all passed away. She's the only one left. I don't feel at ease leaving her alone in the mountains, but it will also be dangerous to bring her to the prefecture capital." Lu Hanyan said in disbelief, how could this be? Although she had not spent much time with Xiao Bai, she still liked this cute little fox very much. Today, when Li Mu sent her away, she and Wan Wan were sad for a while. She did not expect that something like this would happen to her. She looked at Li Mu and asked, "Should I go and see her?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "Let her be alone for a while." Lu Hanyan sighed and said, "Don't worry. Wan Wan and I will take good care of her." Li Mu took out a piece of jade and gave it to her, saying, "There are a few wolf demons inside. They once besieged Xiao Bai's grandmother. In a few days, you can give it to Xiao Bai." Lu Hanyan took the jade and said, "I will exchange the silver you saved with me for banknotes tomorrow. Take them with you when you go to the prefecture capital. You will need them." Li Mu did not spend much on himself. Lu Hanyan helped him save up the profits from the shop and the royalties from the bookstore. He did not know how much she had saved up. The next morning, Lu Hanyan took out a few banknotes and handed them to Li Mu, saying, "Here are 500 taels. Take them with you. Don't lose them. I asked Wan Wan to help you pack up some loose silver." I know. Li Mu was very clear in his heart that although he had earned a lot of money during this period of time, it was still far from 500 taels. However, he didn't say much. He accepted the banknotes and took the bundle from Wan Wan's hands. He said, "I'm leaving. I'll leave the family to you." Wan Wan looked at him reluctantly and said, "Young master, you must come back often." Li Mu patted her head and said, "I will." He lowered his head to look at Xiao Bai and said, "Listen to Sister Lu at home and cultivate well." The little fox nodded seriously. "I'll work hard in my cultivation and wait for your return, benefactor." Li Mu waved to Lu Hanyan and said, "Goodbye." Lu Hanyan waved her hand and said, "Goodbye." She watched as Li Mu walked out of the house and forcefully restrained her urge to follow him. Then, her heart suddenly jolted. Just a moment ago, she really did have the thought of leaving with Li Mu. Because if she left with Li Mu, they could hold hands and cultivate together every day. That kind of feeling made her intoxicated. No. Lu Hanyan shook her head violently and chased the complicated thoughts out of her mind. She knew that she couldn't go on like this. If this went on, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to leave Li Mu for the rest of her life. Although that kind of feeling was really very, very comfortable, she couldn't sink into it anymore. Absolutely not. Lu Hanyan kept reciting the heart-calming mantra and her gaze gradually became firm. Wan Wan noticed her abnormality and turned to ask, "Miss, what's wrong?" Lu Hanyan let out a long sigh of relief and looked at Wan Wan. She asked, "What do you think about opening a few more branches in the prefecture capital?" At the entrance of the county yamen, Jianghu county magistrates gently patted Li Mu and Li Si's shoulders and said, "The county yamen is not like the county yamen. When you get there, you must keep a low profile and be careful. No matter what, your lives are the most important. If you really can't do it, come back. There will always be a place for you in the county yamen." Li Si thought for a moment and asked, "Sir, can I come back now?" Jianghu county magistrates smiled and said, "The carriage is here. Hurry up and set off." Li Mu walked to Zhang Shan and said, "After I leave, help me look after the Yunyan pavilion." Zhang Shan patted his chest and said seriously, "Don't worry about going to the prefecture capital. From today onwards, I will respect Lady Lu like a mother. Whoever dares to bully her is bullying my mother. See if I don't twist his dog head off and kick it like a ball. Li Mu had previously mentioned to Lu Hanyan that if it was convenient, she could arrange a source of income for Zhang Shan. Zhang Shan was a bailiff. According to the laws of Great Zhou, he couldn't do business. Li Mu's haunted house was only a secret investment. On the surface, it was operated by Lu Hanyan. It wasn't easy to arrange a source of income for him. Lu Hanyan directly recruited Zhang Shan's wife into the Yunyan pavilion and gave her a good salary every month. Then, she inexplicably had a son. Li Mu trusted Zhang Shan. In the entire county yamen, he had followed Zhang county magistrates the longest. Although he was always kicked out, he was still the #1 lackey of the Zhang county magistrates. If anything happened, it would be up to Zhang county magistrates to cover for him. After dealing with these matters, he walked to the side of the carriage and said to Li Si, "It's getting late. Let's go." If Li Mu was alone and used the teleport talisman, it would only take a little more than half a day to reach the prefecture capital. However, Li Si was just a normal person. He couldn't use his mana to activate the teleport talisman. The two of them could only choose to take the carriage. Although it would take a little longer, it was more comfortable. Everything in Yangqiu County was more or less arranged. The only regret was that he didn't get to see Su He. Before leaving, Li Mu made another trip to the Bay of Clearwater, but he still didn't get to see Su He. He didn't know when she would end her closed-door training, whether the refining process would go smoothly, and when the female corpse at the bottom of the lake would emerge. Li Mu left a letter in the small house, explaining his whereabouts. When Su He finished her closed-door training, she would see it. Li Si leaned against the carriage. His gaze swept across Li Mu's face and said, "I didn't expect you to think of other women besides the boss and Lady Lu." Li Mu was surprised and said, "How did you know I was thinking of other women?" Li Si said indifferently, "When you think of the boss, your expression will be more serious. When you think of Lady Lu, the corner of your mouth will always be smiling. The woman you were thinking of just now clearly wasn't either of them. You're worried about her. Is she in danger?" Li Mu didn't answer. He only sighed and said, "It's a pity that you didn't go into fortune-telling." Li Si sighed and said, "It's a pity that I can tell the fate of others, but I can't tell my own." Li Mu was promoted by the governor because of those two contributions. The person who called out Li Si was the governor. Needless to say, the reason why he called out Li Si must be because of Qin Miaomiao. A few months ago, in order to bring Zhao Yong to justice, Zhang county magistrates used his daughter's help to invite Qin Miaomiao, the daughter of the governor. Later, Li Mu and Zhang Shan's plan failed. It was Li Si who used a handsome man trick to capture Qin Miaomiao's heart and reversed the situation. Obviously, this matter couldn't be hidden from the governor. However, if the governor vented his anger on this matter, no matter if it was Zhang Shan, Li Si, Li Mu, or even the county magistrate, none of them could escape the responsibility. However, in the past 6 months, the governor's mansion had been peaceful. It wasn't difficult to guess why the governor promoted Li Si. It wasn't recruiting constables, it was recruiting a son-in-law. Li Mu made a fist and palm salute to Li Si and said, "Congratulations." Li Si ignored him. He leaned against the carriage and looked up at the sky outside the window at a 45-degree angle. The speed of the carriage couldn't be compared with that of Li Mu, who used the teleport charm. The horse couldn't go all the way. Basically, it had to stop for a rest every 2 hours. Originally, it only took half a day, but now it took 1.5 days. At dusk, the coachman stopped the carriage and lifted the curtain. He said, "Sirs, there is still half the distance to the county capital. 10 miles ahead, there is an inn at the fork in the road. If we continue forward, the nearest inn will be a few dozen miles away. Why don't we rest there for the night and continue our journey tomorrow morning? The horses also need to eat and drink." Li Mu nodded and said, "Then let's stay there for the night." If there was a bed to sleep on, Li Mu didn't want to eat and sleep in the open. Moreover, there was Li Si. Anyway, the the travel expenses along the way were reimbursed by the county government. The inn in the mountains was naturally not as good as the one in the county town, but it also had a place to shelter them from the wind and rain. The three of them booked 3 rooms. The coachman stopped the carriage in the yard and untied the horse. He led it to the stable and fed it some hay and water. Li Si was in a bad mood. He didn't speak much along the way. When he arrived at the inn, he went into his room and didn't come out again. The inn had prepared food, but Li Mu didn't eat it. Before he left, Lu Hanyan had prepared food for him in a food box. He could eat it after heating it up. She even thoughtfully drew a talisman for Li Mu. Li Mu stuck the Fulu talisman on the food box. After activating it, he waited for a quarter of an hour before opening the food box. The food inside was steaming. Li Mu sighed. Although he and Lu Hanyan often bickered, in his heart, Lu Hanyan was already a perfect woman. She wasn't as obedient as Wan Wan, and she wasn't as powerful as Li Qing. However, Wan Wan and Li Qing weren't as good as her in many aspects. If someone could marry her, he would be convinced by her after 3 lifetimes of hard work. It was a pity that such a woman didn't like men. After Li Mu finished eating, he put the food box away. He lay on the bed and slept without his clothes on. Tonight, he didn't meditate. He didn't know what would happen when he arrived at the county town tomorrow. He needed to conserve his energy. This inn was located in a remote mountainous area, so there weren't many guests tonight. There were only a few rooms that were lit up. After night fell, as time passed, the lights in each room were gradually extinguished. After midnight, only the lanterns in the corridor were still lit. When everything was silent, the candlelight in the lanterns in the corridor outside Li Mu's room suddenly flickered. 2 invisible shadows passed through the door and floated in. One of the ghostly shadows floated directly to Li Mu's window. Looking at the sleeping Li Mu, she exclaimed, "Sister, quickly come and look. This person is so handsome," the other ghostly shadow said unhappily, "Don't be silly. Quickly absorb his yang energy. If you go back late, you'll be scolded." The ghostly shadow in front of the bed floated above Li Mu's body. Looking down, she couldn't help but say, "Sister, he's really handsome. His skin is so soft and tender. I can't bear to suck him." As her voice fell, her soul suddenly swayed. She murmured, "Sister, why do I feel a little dizzy? You can't do anything well. I'll do it myself." The other ghostly shadow floated over and said unhappily. When she bent down, she was also stunned for a moment. She couldn't help but say, "You don't say, this person's life is really beautiful. Why do I feel a little dizzy too?" Chapter 128. Other than lust, Li Mu could also collect the desire to see, listen, and touch. As long as it was within the 6 desires, it could help him cultivate. He originally thought that these desires could only be absorbed from humans. He didn't expect that ghosts could do it as well. These 2 female ghosts who had snuck into the inn to absorb his yang qi and covet his appearance had instead been absorbed by him. The desire to see was one of the 6 desires. Like the other 6 emotions, when it was contained in the body, there wouldn't be any special feelings. However, if it was extracted, it would feel as if the body was hollowed out. This was the same whether it was a human, a demon, or a ghost. Yang Qi was produced by the 7 souls of humans and contained in the body. It was greatly beneficial to ghosts and demons. When a human's Yang Qi was absorbed, they would be weak for a period of time. After that, the Yang Qi would be automatically replenished by the 7 souls. If one absorbed too much at once, or if one's Yang Qi was absorbed too often, there was a possibility of dying. In comparison, directly seducing a person's soul was more effective than absorbing their Yang energy. However, it would directly cause a death and attract the attention of the authorities. Therefore, some ghosts who had evil intentions but didn't dare to kill people would secretly absorb their yang energy when they were asleep. As long as they didn't absorb too much, the person whose yang qi was absorbed would at most feel a little dizzy and weak when they woke up the next day. They would recover quickly and wouldn't be suspicious. Before they absorbed the yang qi, they would be weakened first. The two female ghosts at the level of resentment stood beside Li Mu's bed, not knowing what to do. They had never encountered such a situation before. After a moment, the older female ghost thought for a moment and asked, "Do you want to try again?" The two ghosts looked at each other and bent down at the same time. Facing Li Mu, they gently sucked. On the bed, Li Mu, who was sleeping, suddenly opened his eyes. His hands reached out from under the blanket and stuck two fulu's on their bodies. The two ghosts maintained their bent posture and froze there, unable to move at all. Their expressions were full of shock. Li Mu got down from the bed, coldly snorted, and said, "Absorbing people's yang qi to cultivate, you two ghosts, how dare you?" Those who could use fulu were almost all cultivators. It was as easy as flipping one's hand to exterminate a vengeful spirit like them. The older female ghost's body trembled as she begged, "Immortal Master, please spare our lives. We only absorbed some yang energy. We have never harmed anyone. Immortal Master, please spare us." Li Mu glanced at them and said, "Do you think you can still talk to me nicely if you've harmed someone?" There was a huge difference between a ghost that cultivated on its own and one that harmed others. Ghostly cultivators relied on yin energy and spiritual energy. Ghosts that refined yin qi to increase their cultivation were bursting with yin qi. On the other hand, ghosts like Su He, who cultivated by guiding spiritual aura, had overwhelming spiritual aura. However, if it were a ghost that relied on consuming the soul essences of humans to swiftly raise its cultivation, the resentment and malevolent aura on its body would soar to the heavens. Just by getting close to it, one would feel extremely uncomfortable. It was the same principle to distinguish between monsters and zombies. Xiao Bai and the snake demon had very pure demonic aura. However, monsters that had consumed human blood would have a tainted blood aura in their demonic aura. The zombies in Zhou County that drank human blood and the corpses that were nourished by spiritual energy under the Bay of Clearwater were also very different. These two female ghosts only had yin qi and no malevolent aura. Obviously, they had never harmed anyone. Otherwise, Li Mu would not have taken out the ghost-locking talisman, but the ghost-slaying talisman. Li Mu waved his hand, and the fulu on the two female ghosts automatically floated down and flew back to Li Mu's hand. After his magic power had greatly increased, he had learned two more supernatural powers. One was called to, and the other was called to, which was the ability to control objects remotely. Although Li Mu could currently control some extremely light objects, there was no upper limit to the power of this supernatural power. He could only control the talisman remotely. However, when used by an upper realm cultivator, it could move mountains, fill seas, and cut off rivers. Although they had regained their mobility, the two female ghosts still did not dare to leave. They stood beside the bed, trembling. Li Mu glanced at them and said, "Although absorbing people's yang qi will not harm anyone's life, it is also not the right path. Seeing that your cultivation is not easy, I will let you live today. However, if you dare to do it again, I will not let you off easily." The younger female ghost seemed to want to say something, but the older female ghost pulled her and quickly said, "Thank you, Immortal Master. Thank you, Immortal Master. This little ghost will not dare to do it again." Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Remember what I said. Go." The older female ghost bowed again and said, "This little ghost will take her leave." After saying that, she dragged the other female ghost and fled in panic. After the two female ghosts left, Li Mu did not go to sleep. He picked up Bai and checked the fulu on him. Then, he walked out of the inn and threw out a ghost-seeking talisman. His figure followed the talisman and soon disappeared in a certain direction. It was already late at night. In the wilderness, there were two dark figures moving quickly through the wilderness. They were the two female ghosts, one big and one small. After walking for a while, the younger female ghost could not help but ask, "Sister, why didn't you tell Immortal Master to save us just now?" The older female ghost looked at her and shook her head. "Immortal Master is merciful. He did not pursue our offense and let us live. How could we implicate him?" The younger female ghost said with a bitter face, but we did not absorb any yang qi today. We will be punished by the king when we go back, the older female ghost said, punish us if you want. We won't die anyway. The younger female ghost said in a low voice, but we are already dead, the older female ghost said angrily, I said die again. Why are you so talkative? Hurry up and go back. The two female ghosts walked all the way. They did not realize that not far behind them, a figure who hid all his aura was silently following them. Limu listened to their conversation and felt that the two female ghosts were loyal. It was not in vain that he let them go just now. When they were in the room earlier, Limu had sensed that the two female ghosts were hiding something from him. Now, it seemed that it was true. They were controlled by the thing called King, which was very likely to be a high-level ghost. Limu did not know the level of the ghost, but he thought that it should not be in the middle realm. Ghost cultivators in the soul realm would not be so sneaky. Su-He was the most obvious example. Their cultivation was powerful and they disdained absorbing the yang qi of mortals to increase their cultivation. Only weaklings who had not reached the middle realm would covet this little bit of mortal yang qi. Although it was better to avoid trouble when they were outside, as a constable, Limu could not help but follow them because of the professional habit he had developed in the past half a year. If the evil ghost was ordinary, he would directly eliminate it. It could be considered as eliminating evil for the people and worthy of his clothes. If the evil ghost was too strong, Limu was already fully armed and prepared to run at any time. He would report this matter when he returned to the county office. However, thinking about it, there would not be any soul realm ghosts in the wilderness, so there was nothing to be afraid of. The two female ghosts floated all the way. In about half an hour, they arrived at a desolate tomb. Limu followed them, but the two ghosts were nowhere to be seen. He looked around and found that the terrain was low. It was a place where Een gathered. Ordinary ghosts and demons would like to use this place as their nest. A thick old tree stood there alone. There was a big hole at the bottom of the tree. The two female ghosts had disappeared near the hole. Limu continued to use the breath concealment technique. Just in case, he stuck two breath concealment talismans on his body. Under the tree roots, only two people walked side by side through the hole. After dozens of steps, their eyes suddenly opened up. From the outside, this was just a wasteland, but there was a different world underground. The cave was brightly lit by candles. A ferocious-looking evil ghost sat on a stone chair in the cave. Two female ghosts knelt at his feet, trembling. In the cave, there were more than 10 ghosts scattered around. The evil ghost looked down at them and asked coldly, "Where is the yang qi you absorbed?" The little female ghost knelt on the ground, her body trembling. She could not say a word. The big female ghost raised her head and said nervously, "My king, we didn't meet any living people." There are no guests in the inn today," the evil ghost said indifferently. "You know what will happen if you return empty-handed, right?" He stretched out his hand and a cloud of black gas surged out of his hand. In an instant, it condensed into a whip shadow. He whipped the big female ghost. The female ghost's body trembled, and even her soul shadow became a little illusory. The evil ghost whipped the little female ghost again. The big female ghost pounced on the little female ghost and blocked the whip for her. She suppressed the pain and said, "She's still young. My king can punish me, you're kind-hearted." The evil ghost whipped a few more times before saying, "Get lost. If you're so useless next time, this king will swallow you directly to avoid trouble." The little female ghost supported the big female ghost and leaned against the wall of the cave. He transferred some of his soul power to her. Her body was slightly more solid than before. At this time, another two ghosts ran up and carried an unconscious young man. They said flatteringly, "My king, we caught a living person today for your enjoyment." The wraith looked at the human youth with a satisfied look in its eyes. He waved his hand and sent out two clouds of black gas into the bodies of the two ghosts. The bodies of the two ghosts became even more solid. They knelt on the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. "Thank you, my king. Thank you, my king." The evil ghost walked in front of the human youth and opened his mouth. He said, "After swallowing the souls and flesh of a few more living people, I'll be able to break through to the soul realm. At that time, I'll definitely be put in an important position by His Highness. Where should I eat first?" He slowly approached the young man and stretched out his arm. Black gas surged on his arm and gradually turned into a ghost claw, slowly reaching for the young man's neck. Just as the ghost claw was about to touch the young man, a silver light suddenly flashed in the cave. A claw filled with ghost chi was cut off and fell to the ground. The evil ghost's face was ferocious. He covered his broken arm and said angrily, "Who is it?" Bai Yi's sword flew back and landed in Li Mu's hand. Li Mu appeared and slowly walked out of the cave. Chapter 129. Just as Li Mu had guessed, this ghost's realm had not reached the spirit realm, so there was no need for him to hide. When the little female ghost saw Li Mu, she said in shock, "Immortal Master." A ghost claw had already grown out of the broken arm of the evil ghost. The ghost stared at Li Mu and said coldly, "Human cultivator." It was rather afraid of Bai Yi in Li Mu's hand. It glanced at the ghosts in the cave and said sternly, "Kill him and leave his soul behind." After receiving the order from the evil ghost, other than the 2 female ghosts, the other 10 ghosts in the cave swarmed towards Li Mu. With a thought from Li Mu, Bai Yi flew out again. These ghosts who were only at the resentful spirit realm were pierced through by Bai Yi. Their spiritual bodies directly collapsed. When they gathered together again, they were already more than half illusory. None of them dared to charge forward again. When the evil ghost saw this, it roared and pounced towards Li Mu with 2 steel forks in its hands. Li Mu raised his sword to meet it. The sound of weapons colliding could be heard in the cave. The steel forks were filled with ghostly chi. It was obvious that they were not ordinary weapons. However, the evil ghost did not have any method to fight. From time to time, it would be slashed by Li Mu. Although its cultivation was high and could recover quickly, it was still angry to the point of shouting. At this moment, Li Mu knew that Li Qing had put in a lot of effort for him. In a battle of the lower 3 realms, the depth of one's cultivation or magic power was not the decisive factor for victory. Although the evil ghost's cultivation was high, it could not gain any advantage at this moment. The evil spirit was no match for Li Mu in close combat, so its body simply exploded, forming an extremely dense ghostly fog, which instantly filled the entire cave. Li Mu stood in place without moving. He knew that the ghost was hiding in the black fog, waiting to give him a fatal blow. His lips moved slightly, and his body emitted a dazzling golden light, repelling the black fog 3 meters away. "So it's a monk." The evil spirit screamed in fear. It seemed to realize that Li Mu was not someone to be trifled with. It shouted in the fog, "Monk, listen to me. I am a ghost general under the command of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. Take this man away and we will mind our own business. How about that?" The evil spirit's voice exposed his position. As soon as he finished speaking, a thunderclap exploded from the direction of his voice. After the drastic increase in his mana, Li Mu's usage of the thunder technique had already reached the stage where he could determine the location by listening to sound. He said angrily, "You're the monk. Your whole family are monks." After the lightning, the black fog dissipated. The evil spirit lay paralyzed on the ground, its aura extremely weak. Li Mu was slightly surprised in his heart. The big female ghost was grateful and promised, "We swear to Immortal Master that we won't harm anyone again." The little female ghost looked up and asked, "Sister, where else can we go?" "I'm afraid we'll be caught again." Li Mu looked at the 2 female ghosts. It was indeed difficult for these lonely souls to survive. Righteous cultivators wanted to get rid of them. Heretical cultivation and demonic cultivators would capture them to refine magic tools. Even the more powerful ones wanted to devour them to improve their cultivation. These 2 female ghosts had good natures, but their strength was not high. If they were left to wander around, they would not have a good ending. Li Mu thought for a moment and said, "If you don't have a place to go, I can recommend a place for you." This young immortal master didn't kill them, so he definitely wouldn't harm them. The big female ghost was delighted. She quickly pulled the little female ghost and kowtowed to Li Mu, saying, "Thank you, immortal master." "Thank you," Li Mu said. "From here, follow the official road and go east. You should be able to reach Xianxia County before dawn. When you arrive, go to the Bay of Clearwater and find a girl called Suhi. Tell her that Li Mu told you to find her." Thinking that Suhi might not have come out of seclusion yet, Li Mu added, "That place is very safe. When you get there, if she doesn't appear, you just have to wait patiently. She will take the initiative to find you." Suhi was alone in the Bay of Clearwater. She was empty and lonely. Before, there was a snake accompanying her. After Bai Yinshin left, there was no one to talk to her. She had complained many times that Li Mu did not visit her enough. Li Mu sent the two ghosts over. They were both ghosts. Suhi could have a companion and the two ghosts could have a backer. They would not become lonely souls. It was the best of both worlds. The big female ghost thought for a moment and kowtowed to Li Mu. She said gratefully, "Thank you, immortal master. We will go now." Even if they were to hide in the deep mountains or forests, there was still a chance that they would be discovered by powerful demonic ghosts. She did not know what would happen after reaching the Bay of Clearwater, but it was definitely better than wandering outside. After the two female ghosts thanked Li Mu, they floated away. Li Mu walked to the side of the young man on the ground. He leaned over and pushed his shoulder, saying, "Wake up." The young man's eyebrows twitched. His face suddenly revealed a frightened expression. He shouted, "Ghosts, there are ghosts." Li Mu said indifferently, "Those evil ghosts have been killed by me. You can go home." The young man looked around in fear. Sure enough, he found that those terrifying ghosts in the cave had disappeared. In front of him stood a young man. He had a handsome face and held a long sword in his hand. He was wearing a bailiff uniform, which gave him a great sense of security. His heart gradually calmed down. He looked at Li Mu and asked in a low voice, "Was it you who saved me?" Li Mu said, "Fortunately, I was free tonight. Otherwise, you would have been eaten by those evil ghosts." He slowly walked out of the cave. The young man crawled up from the ground and followed behind him. Li Mu walked out of the cave and asked, "Where do you live?" It was the middle of the night. If he let the young man go back alone and met some evil ghosts on the way, Li Mu's efforts would be in vain. The young man said, "I live in the county town." County town? Li Mu did not expect such a coincidence. He grabbed the young man's shoulder and said, "Then come with me. I will take you back tomorrow." The young man's body rose into the air. Li Mu carried him in the direction of the inn. On the way back to the inn, Li Mu could not help but sigh. A few months ago, he was also grabbed by Li Qing. At that time, a small vengeful spirit could take his life. Now, he could kill a third-level evil ghost all by himself. He could truly hold his own. Chapter 130. By the time Li Mu brought the young man back to the inn, it was already past midnight. The inn was already closed for the day. He let the young man sleep on the bed while he sat down cross-legged to refine the souls of the dead ghosts. The cultivation method of the second level of Taoism was to continuously condense and strengthen the three souls. Apart from refining the soul on a fixed day every month, one could also borrow the soul power of others. In theory, as long as one had enough courage and soul power, refining the soul and condensing the soul within a month would not be a problem. However, the realm that was created this way was just a facade. The mana was also like renuance. Fighting with cultivators of the same level was suicide. Li Mu did not plan to condense the soul too early. He planned to completely refine the soul power to the extreme and use it for himself before preparing to condense the spirit. The youth sat on the bed and asked Li Mu, "Are you a constable from the county capital?" Li Mu nodded and said, "You can say so." The youth lay down on the bed and soon the sound of steady breathing could be heard. Li Mu lowered his head to take a look. Most of the time, the clothes he was wearing gave people a sense of security. In the Great Zhou, being a constable was never a lowly job. They received the lowest salary and did the most dangerous things. They often faced death and silently protected the safety of the people. This was the reason why the people trusted them. In the beginning, Li Mu did not care about the identity of a constable. His original goal was to stay in the county government and stay by Li Qing's side to protect his life. But when he saw a life that should have been gone come back to life in his hands, the satisfaction he felt was something he had never experienced in storytelling or acting. Perhaps this was the meaning of this job. In the morning, when Li Mu opened the door to his room, Li Si also came out from next door. He rubbed his head and held the door. He said in surprise, "That's strange. I slept for so long yesterday. Why am I still so tired?" Li Mu took out the porcelain bottle that Xuandu gave him. There was one last pill left in it and he threw it to Li Si. Li Si took it and asked, "What is this?" This pill didn't have much effect on Li Mu, so Li Mu casually said, "It's for nourishing the body." Li Si poured out the pill from the porcelain bottle and tossed it into his mouth. A moment later, he looked at Li Mu in surprise and asked, "This thing is not bad. Do you have more?" "No." Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Pack up and get ready to go." A moment later, Li Si stood downstairs and saw the youth who followed Li Mu out. He curiously asked, "Where did he come from?" Li Mu said, "I picked him up last night and sent him back to the county town." Li Si sized up the youth a few times, but didn't ask much. After boarding the carriage, he sat in a corner with a worried expression. The closer they got to the county town, the deeper the worry on his face. On the way to the county town, Li Mu asked the youth a few simple questions. He learned that his surname was Su and his name was Hao. His family had a small business in the county town. Yesterday, he snuck out of his house and ran out of the town to play. Unknowingly, he played until it was dark and accidentally lost his way. Coincidentally, he encountered 2 ghosts and was captured. He almost became the ghosts' food. The carriage traveled for a few hours and finally arrived at the county town at noon. As the capital of the North County, the county town looked much more imposing than Yangqiu County town from the outside. The city walls were tall and the gate could allow 2 carriages to pass side by side. There was an endless stream of people at the gate. The coachman drove the carriage into the county town. Li Mu lifted the curtain and said to the youth, "We've arrived at the county town. Quickly go back. Don't run around alone in the future. The next time you meet those things, no one can save you." The youth bowed to Li Mu and thanked him. He jumped off the carriage and ran into the crowd. The coachman stopped a passerby and asked for the location of the county office. Then, he started the carriage again. The county town of the North County was directly managed by the county governor. There was only one county office in the city. In the office, there were the county governor, the county deputy, and the county lieutenant. The county governor was responsible for all the affairs in the county. The county deputy's duty was to assist the county governor. As for the county lieutenant, he was mainly responsible for the security of the county. Li Si leaned against the carriage and sighed again. Li Mu said, "Didn't you say last time that Miss Chen was a good girl? Why are you sighing now?" "She is a good girl, but I didn't say that I would marry her." Li Si sighed and said, "My life plan is not like this." Li Mu said in surprise, "You have a life plan?" Li Si glanced at him and said, "If you don't even have a life plan, what's the point of living?" Even Li Si had a life plan. Li Mu thought about it and felt that he had to plan his life well. He was very clear about the short-term plan for his life. He had to condense the last 2 souls and become a complete person to make up for the final flaw on the path of cultivation. During this period of time, he had been trapped by the half-year deadline and had no time to plan his future. He looked at Li Si and asked, "What is your life plan?" Li Si said, "I want to play for a few more years. When I'm 30 years old, I'll find an honest girl to marry." "How did the honest girl offend you?" Li Mu spat and said, "She's really a jerk." Li Si glanced at him and mocked, "Do you think you're better than me?" Li Mu asked, "What's wrong with me?" Li Si snorted and said, "If you don't like a girl, you shouldn't be too good to her. Otherwise, you won't be able to pay off this debt of love in this lifetime." "Boss, Lady Lu, that little maid, and the girl you missed before you left, how much do you owe?" Li Si looked at Li Mu with disdain and said, "I'm just playing around with those girls in the brothel. I only enter their bodies and never enter their lives. What about you? You treat these girls too well, but you don't take the initiative, refuse, make promises, or take responsibility. Between the two of us, who's the bad guy?" Li Si actually thought that he was inferior to him. This made Li Mu somewhat difficult to accept. He looked at Li Si and asked, "Boss is good to me, and I'm good to her. Is that wrong?" Li Si said, "That's right." Li Mu said again, "Lady Lu is also my benefactor. She's good to me, and I'm good to her. Is that wrong?" Li Si shook his head and said, "That's also right." Li Mu said again, "I treat Wan Wan as my sister. I'm good to my sister. Is that wrong?" Li Si looked at him and said indifferently, "Do you want to see Boss get married? Do you want to see Lady Lu get married? Do you want to see your sister get married?" Li Mu thought seriously and looked at Li Si with guilt. He said, "I'm sorry. I'm not a good person." Li Si patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly, "I advise you to cherish the person in front of you. Cherish him while he's still by your side. Don't wait until it's too late to regret when you lose him." Li Mu thought for a moment and asked, "You mean, I should have expressed my feelings to Boss at that time?" Li Si shook his head and said, "It's useless. Your relationship with Boss hasn't reached that stage. Boss won't stay for you, and you can't keep her." Li Mu sighed softly. In fact, he knew this better than Li Si. He asked again, "So you mean, I should cherish Lady Lu?" "I want you to cherish me." Li Si grabbed his arm and said, "If something happens to me, who will care about your relationship?" Chapter 131. Li Mu used to feel pretty good about himself, but it was Li Si who constantly reminded him and made him recognize himself. Li Si's words made sense. Li Mu had never been in love in his 2 lifetimes. Without Li Si, he would have one less relationship mentor. But an arm can't twist a leg. Whatever the governor wanted to do to Li Si, he couldn't do anything. He could only comfort Li Si by saying, "Life is like that. Since you can't resist, then just close your eyes and enjoy it." As his voice fell, the coachman lifted the curtain and said, "Sirs, we've arrived at the county office." Li Mu jumped off the carriage and dragged Li Si down as well. After showing their transfer orders at the entrance of the county office, the bailiff smiled and said, "You're new colleagues. If you go in now, you should be able to make it in time." Li Mu asked, "Make it in time for what?" The bailiff smiled mysteriously and said, "You'll know when you go in." Li Mu and Li Si were led by this person into the county office and came to a very spacious courtyard. In the courtyard, there were more than 10 people standing neatly. These people were all men and they were all wearing official uniforms. Li Mu looked over and found that they were all in the soul condensing realm. At the front was a middle-aged man wearing a purple official's uniform. He was actually in the soul condensing realm. The bailiff walked to the middle-aged man's side and pointed at Li Mu and Li Si. He said, "Constable Zhao, these 2 are colleagues transferred from Yangqiu County. They just arrived at the county office. Do you want them to participate in this entry test?" The middle-aged man looked at the 2 of them and said, "The 2 of you, stand in line." Although Li Mu and Li Si didn't know what the entry test was, they still stood with the 10 people obediently. The middle-aged man only said one sentence from beginning to end. When Li Mu and Li Si stood in line, he took out a simple bronze mirror from his chest and poured his Fa Li into the bronze mirror. The bronze mirror suddenly shot out a white light. He raised the bronze mirror and allowed the white light to flash before everyone's eyes. Li Mu felt that the light was blinding, and he subconsciously closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the scene around him had changed. Illusion? This was not the first time Li Mu had been dragged into an illusion. After a brief moment of surprise, he began to observe his surroundings. He was in an unfamiliar room. There was no door in this room, and there were windows on all four sides. In front of Li Mu was a huge box. He didn't know what the so-called entry test was, but he insisted on dealing with all changes by remaining unchanged. He stood there quietly, motionless. Clang! Li Mu stood still, but the box in front of him suddenly opened. Li Mu looked over and found that the box was filled with silver. A voice in his heart told him to take a step forward, take a step forward. As long as he took a step forward, all the silver would be his. It would allow him to live in luxury for the rest of his life, and enjoy glory, splendor, wealth, and rank. As this voice sounded, Li Mu's heart began to throb. At the same time, he found that his resistance to money was gradually decreasing. Li Mu finally understood what the Yamen runner's test was. In an illusion, it was easy to lose one's mind. The various temptations of the human world would be infinitely magnified here. Those with a weak will would sink into temptation and desire. However, this level of temptation was something that Li Mu could easily resist without chanting the clear heart mantra. One is marked by the company one keeps. He had been by Lu Hanyan's side for a long time, so he was not tempted by a box of silver. Lu Hanyan, this golden mountain, had swayed before Li Mu's eyes every day, but he had not been tempted. How could he be tempted by this box of silver? The silver in the box turned into gold and jewels before Li Mu's eyes for a while. Li Mu looked at it expressionlessly, feeling a little bored. At this moment, among the dozen or so people in the county Yaman's courtyard, many of them looked hesitant. In the end, two of them could not help but take a step forward. As soon as they took a step forward, their bodies trembled and they suddenly fell to the ground. Constable Zhao looked at them coldly and said, "If you can't resist the temptation of money, even if you become a Yamen runner, you will still be an evil official who takes advantage of the common people. Men, take these two away and send them back to their original places of residence. They will never be hired again." His gaze swept around and paused for a moment on the faces of the three people. One of the youths had a determined expression and was not tempted by money. The other two were the two Yamen runners who had just arrived from Yangqiu County. The more handsome one's expression did not change at all. It was as if the silver could not arouse his interest at all. This made Constable Zhao's expression change. Although the youth was not tempted, he was obviously trying his best to restrain himself. As for this young man, he was not interested in money at all. As for the last one, he seemed to be a little absent-minded. He had a worried expression on his face and no one knew what he was thinking. Constable Zhao even wondered if he had seen the transmogrified treasure box. Li Mu was in the illusion and watching the things in the box change. Just as he was feeling bored, his vision suddenly blurred and he appeared in the courtyard again. He tilted his head to look and realized that the person who had been standing on his left had disappeared. He must have failed the test and been taken away because he could not resist the temptation of money. The rest of the people also realized that the two people beside them were missing and secretly sighed in relief. They had not felt good in the illusion just now and had almost failed to resist the temptation. Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and asked, "The gold and silver treasures in the treasure box are enough to make you rich for the rest of your life. Why are you not tempted?" Li Mu replied, "I am not interested in money." What a strange person. Constable Zhao shook his head and looked at the youth again, asking, "What about you?" The youth's expression was firm as he said, "As an official of the Great Zhou, I must set myself as an example. I will not bribe, accept bribes, or accept ill-gotten gains." That's right. As a constable, you must resist the temptation of money. Constable Zhao nodded approvingly and finally looked at Li Si, asking, "What's your reason?" Li Si came back to his senses and asked, "What's the reason?" Constable Zhao asked, "The gold and silver treasures in the treasure box, were you not tempted for a moment?" Li Si was stunned and asked, "What treasure box? What treasures?" Constable Zhao looked at him in surprise. He had tested countless new people. Among these people, there were those with strong wills who were not tempted by the gold and silver treasures at all. There were also those with weak wills who were completely immersed in their desires. This was the first time he had encountered someone who was distracted in the illusion. But no matter what, he was not tempted by money. He had passed this test. Constable Zhao did not think that he could pass the second test. The first test to become a constable was money, and the second test was women's lust. This person's yang qi was insufficient and his kidneys were empty. He must be extremely lustful. In the past, people like this would be the first to be eliminated in the second test. He looked at the people who had passed the first test and said, "Congratulations to all of you for passing the first test. I hope that in the future, you will be able to resist the temptation of money and always maintain a just heart." He cleared his throat and continued, "Next, you will undergo the second test. If you can pass the second test, you will officially become a constable of the county government." Constable Zhao picked up the bronze mirror and flashed it in front of everyone's eyes again. The scene in front of Li Mu changed again. He found himself in a room filled with pink fog. Opposite him, a woman wearing a light veil was looking at him with seductive eyes. The woman raised her arm delicately and beckoned to Li Mu. Her breath smelled like orchids and she said in a tender voice, "Young master, come." Being in the illusion, one's resistance to beauty would be greatly reduced. Without chanting the mind-clearing mantra, Li Mu's heart began to have the urge to take a step forward. At this moment, Lu Hanyan's figure unconsciously appeared in his mind. Thinking of Lu Hanyan and looking at the woman again, Li Mu suddenly felt dull and dull. Whether it was in terms of appearance or figure, the two of them were worlds apart. It would have been better if they did not compare. Now that they were compared, he suddenly lost all his urges. Chapter 132. In the county yamen, Constable Zhao stood in front of the crowd and carefully observed their expressions. Most of the remaining people looked like they were struggling with their inner desires. After a while, two of them could not help but take a step forward and collapse to the ground. Constable Zhao looked regretful and waved his hand, "Take them away." A few bailiffs came forward and carried the two of them away. When Constable Zhao walked to the front of the youth, he saw that his face was flushed but his expression was still firm. His gaze was once again filled with admiration. He walked to Li Mu and saw that his expression was normal. He was not affected by the illusion at all. Not only that, but there was also a trace of reminiscence on his face. Constable Zhao praised in his heart. This young constable from Yangqiu County had a firm mind that was different from ordinary people. Whether it was the temptation of money or beauty, nothing could move him in the slightest. This kind of person, whether he was an official or an official, would be a clear stream. I wonder what he's reminiscing about. Could it be his wife? To be able to think of such a method to break through the illusion, he must be a love-struck person. Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and felt very gratified. This young constable from Yangqiu County had a firm mind and a high level of cultivation. He could be put to an important position. And that youth's mind was not bad either. He was a promising talent. With a bit of training, he could be of great use. Finally, he looked at Li Si and his face was filled with astonishment. He had thought that this person would be the first to succumb to the temptation of beauty. He did not expect him to hold on for so long. Not only was there no hesitation or struggle on his face, he even had a mocking expression. It was as if he did not care about the temptation of the illusion. Constable Zhao withdrew the illusion and looked at Li Si with astonishment. Then, he said to the rest of the people, "Congratulations on passing the second test. As an official, you must not only withstand the test of wealth, but also the temptation of beauty. Your performance was very good. From now on, you are officially constables of the county yamen." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed expressions appeared on their faces. At this moment, Constable Zhao continued, "However, before you enter the yamen, I still have to give you a third test. Those who can pass the third test and perform outstandingly can become my assistant and be exempted from the duty of patrolling the streets." Li Mu was quite tempted when he heard this. Patrolling the streets was a very time-consuming thing. If he could avoid patrolling the streets, he would have enough time to do his own things. He just didn't know what the third test was. If he couldn't get through it on his own, he could only rely on the clear heart art. Constable Zhao raised the bronze mirror again. Li Mu's vision suddenly turned pitch black. A ferocious and terrifying ghost face appeared from the darkness and flew towards Li Mu. The illusion could magnify his fear. Li Mu subconsciously tightened his grip on Bai, but then he realized it was just an illusion. He let the ghost face pass through his body. At the same time, several figures in the courtyard couldn't help but take a step back the moment the ghost shadow pounced on them, directly leaving the illusion. That evil ghost was at least a third realm ghost. In their fear, they couldn't control their actions. When they left the illusion and observed their surroundings, they finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, they still had lingering fears. Constable Zhou looked at them and said, as a constable, other than being able to resist all kinds of temptations, you also need to have a certain amount of courage. Those who are afraid of death can never become good constables. Your minds are still firm, but your courage still needs to be honed. A few of them looked guilty. They looked at the others who were still standing at the same spot with admiration. Li Mu was in the darkness. All kinds of demonic ghosts kept jumping out from all around him. Sometimes, they were repulsive evil ghosts. Sometimes, they were zombies with murderous auras. Sometimes, they were ferocious demons. In the illusion, the auras of these demonic ghosts were extremely real. When one's fear was magnified, they couldn't even distinguish between illusion and reality. However, whether it was the core condensation realm demonic cultivators, jumping zombies, or even the primordial spirit of the Dongxian heretical cultivation, Li Mu had fought with them before. These illusions couldn't disturb his state of mind at all. As time passed, a few more people were scared away by the illusion. Only 3 people remained standing at the same spot. One of them was the youth. Although he looked scared, his expression was still determined. The other person was a skinny youth with a pale face. His expression was wooden, but he didn't look like he was scared by the demonic ghosts in the illusion. Instead, he looked like he had seen through life and death. The last person's expression was very calm. He didn't seem to be afraid of the demonic ghosts at all. Under everyone's gaze, he didn't retreat. Instead, he took a step forward and directly stepped out of the illusion. Constable Zhao put away the bronze mirror and looked at Li Mu with admiration. He said, "What guts? Could it be that you fought with these evil beings in Yangqiu County?" Li Mu nodded and didn't deny it. The demonic ghosts in the illusion were only at the third realm. The zombies were just jumping zombies. Li Mu had seen fourth realm demonic cultivators, soul realm demonic cultivators, and even flying stiff. How could he be scared by those things? At this moment, Li Si and the youth also woke up from the illusion. The youth's body was already drenched in sweat. His face was very pale as he stood there, panting heavily. Constable Zhao patted his shoulder and said, "With your cultivation, it's already very good that you could last this long." His gaze finally landed on Li Si. If the previous 2 people were both cultivators with strong wills who didn't fear temptations or demonic ghosts, then this person was just a mortal. Constable Zhao still couldn't understand why the county government would promote such a person from the county government, but it was precisely such a mortal who could pass the 3 tests without any ripples. Similarly, he wasn't tempted by money or beauty. He had enough courage to pass the tests that most soul-condensing realm cultivators couldn't pass. This also showed that he wasn't that ordinary. Constable Zhao looked suspicious and asked Li Si, "Aren't you afraid of death?" Li Si was expressionless. He said, "What's there to be afraid of death? I don't want to live anyway." Constable Zhao sized up Li Si for a long time but couldn't see anything special about him. He also didn't know if he passed the 3 tests or not. He thought for a long time and walked into a hall. He said to a man, "County Governor, how should we deal with this person?" The man said, "Let him stay." Constable Zhao hesitated. "But he's just a mortal." "According to the rules," the man said, he was specifically asked for by the county governor. Constable Zhao was stunned. After he came to his senses, he didn't ask any more questions. According to the rules, those who were selected from the county yamen were the best among the local constables. They still had to pass the county yamen's test before they could officially work in the county capital. But since the county governor had spoken, it wasn't difficult to make an exception for a mortal who had never cultivated. In the county yamen, everyone stood together and waited for the results. Li Si suddenly realized something. He looked at Li Mu and asked, "If I didn't pass the test just now, would I be able to go back?" Li Mu nodded and said, "In principle, yes." Li Si slapped his thigh and said regretfully, "Why didn't I think of that just now?" Constable Zhao walked out again and said to the crowd, "Congratulations to all of you for passing the pre-employment test. I'll bring you to your living quarters." Li Si suddenly walked forward and said, "Sir Constable, I'm a greedy person and am easily tempted by money. I'm afraid I can't take on big responsibilities." Constable Zhao smiled and said, "You can slowly change in the future." Li Si was stunned and said, "I'm also greedy for women. I feel uncomfortable if I don't go to the brothel every day." Constable Zhao cupped his hands and said, "It's good to be energetic." Li Si continued, "I'm a coward. I'll run away when I see demons, ghosts, and evil creatures." Constable Zhao praised him. Constables also have to cherish their lives. If you can win, fight. If you can't win, run. This is a very wise behavior. Li Si stopped pretending and asked, "What will it take for you to chase me away?" Constable Zhao smiled and said, "You passed 3 tests. Why would I chase you away? The county yamen is a big family. In the future, treat this place as your own home. Don't be shy." The county governor's manor. A young man was standing in the middle of the room and reporting to a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man tapped the table with his index finger and said, "You said that he passed 3 tests. Money and beauty didn't tempt him, and he wasn't scared by the 3rd illusion?" The young man nodded and said in surprise, "He's just an ordinary person. How could he pass these 3 tests? He's worthy of being chosen by Miao Miao." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Let him see me." Chapter 133. When Constable Zhao brought them to their lodgings, everyone, including Li Mu, was dumbfounded. This was a small room. From the layout, it was obvious that it had been converted into a duty room. Against the walls on both sides, there was a bunk bed that could accommodate 5 people. On the wall inside, there was a standing cabinet. There were exactly 10 compartments on the cabinet that were used to store things. The 10 people who had passed the entrance examination were just enough to fill this room. Li Mu could not believe that the lodgings in the county yamen were so simple and crude. Although he did not expect to have a small house with a courtyard when he arrived, he did not expect that he would have to share a room with 9 other people. Constable Zhao saw their expressions and said, "The county yamen originally did not provide lodgings, but the prefectural governor empathized with everyone and converted the duty room into a bedroom. These are the conditions of the yamen. If you do not wish to stay here, you can also rent a room outside." These words were actually nonsense. The constable's monthly salary was only 1 tael of silver. It was not enough to rent a room or stay in an inn. The constables of the county yamen were all born and raised locally. No matter how poor they were, they had their own lodgings. However, the county capital was different. Many of the constables here were from other places and could not solve their own lodgings. The determined young man silently placed his luggage in a cabinet. He chose a spot against the wall and began to tidy his bed. The rest of the people looked hesitant. Living in the county yamen was obviously very depressing and there was no privacy. However, if they moved out, they would have to spend a large sum of money. Even if they did not come to the county yamen for their salary, they would still feel the pinch. After seeing the situation here, Li Mu did not plan to stay in the county yamen. He had too many secrets and needed enough space to cultivate. He planned to rent a house nearby. He was no longer the poor constable who had to borrow 20 taels of silver from half a year ago. Li Si put down his luggage with an indifferent expression. Based on Li Mu's understanding of him, he would not come back to sleep too often in the future. Li Si had just sat down when a young man in white walked in. When Constable Zhao saw the young man in white, he immediately bowed and asked, "Do you have any orders for me?" The young man in white said, "I'm looking for Li Si." He looked at Li Si, who was sitting by the bed, and said, "Come with me. The prefectural governor wants to see you." Li Si sighed and slowly stood up, as if he had expected this moment to come. He looked at Li Mu and said, "If I don't come back, remember to bring my message back to the Fragrant Pavilion, Apricot Courtyard, and Spring Wind Pavilion. Tell Xiangxiang, Jin, Xiaohui, Ping, and Suehua that I love them." After Li Si finished speaking, a resolute look appeared on his face and he walked out without looking back. Li Mu watched his departing figure, and could only congratulate him in his heart for growing old together with Miss Miao Miao, and giving birth to a child soon. After the young man left with Li Si, another Yamen runner walked in and whispered a few words into Constable Zhao's ear. "A Yamen runner from our county office?" Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and the others in confusion and said to them, "Everyone, pack your things in a while. Come out with me first." The 9 of them walked out of the room and returned to the front yard. When Li Mu walked into the yard, he raised his head and saw the young man he had saved last night standing in the yard. Beside him was a middle-aged man. When the young man saw Li Mu, he quickly ran over and stood beside him. He said, "It's this big brother Yamen runner who saved me." The middle-aged man strode forward and held Li Mu's wrist. He said, "Thank you for saving me, sir. I only have one son. If something happened to him, I really don't know what to do." Li Mu smiled and said, "As a Yamen runner, it's my duty to kill ghosts that harm the people." "You're welcome." Constable Zhao said in surprise, "It's you who saved shopkeeper Su's son?" Li Mu nodded and said, "Last night, I was resting in a wilderness inn and encountered 2 female ghosts sucking people's yang qi. I secretly followed them and chased them to the lair of one of the evil ghosts. After eliminating the evil ghosts, I saved him." The middle-aged man said gratefully, "Sir, you saved the last of the Su family's descendants. The Su family is greatly indebted to you. I have prepared a small gift, I hope you can accept it." Li Mu waved his hand and said, "I appreciate shopkeeper Su's kindness, but there's no need for a gift. This is my duty. If this precedent is set, I'm afraid it will have a bad influence on the Yamen. Firstly, he didn't lack money, and secondly, he didn't lack anything. He didn't need a small gift to thank him." The middle-aged man tried to persuade him again, but seeing Li Mu's insistence, he could only say, "Since sir is unwilling to accept it, then I will donate it to the county Yamen." He took the young man's hand and said, "I'm not talented, but I have a small business in the county town. If sir needs me in the future, just let me know. If I can do it, I will definitely not refuse." Shopkeeper Su thanked him again, then left with Su Hao. Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu in surprise and said, "I originally thought that you used some method to resist the temptation of the illusion. Now it seems that you really aren't interested in money. Shopkeeper Su gave you 1,000 taels of silver, but you rejected it just like that." Li Mu's eyes widened. 1,000 taels? Li Mu was extremely regretful. Logically speaking, even if the North County government couldn't defeat a 6th realm Xia Xian or a ghost cultivator, it shouldn't be a problem to deal with a 5th realm Chu Jiang of Gojosian. Constable Zhao shook his head and said, "It's not that they can't defeat him. It's just that these ghost cultivators usually hide their heads and tails. It's very difficult to find traces of them. Moreover, Chu Jiang of Gojosian is easy to deal with, but the Nether Saint behind him is not." Li Mu said in surprise, "Who is the Nether Saint?" Constable Zhao asked, "Have you heard of the 1,000 Illusions Venerable?" Li Mu's heart skipped a beat. He nodded and said, "I've heard of him." Constable Zhao continued, "The Demons sect has 10 subsects and 10 elders. The 1,000 Illusions Venerable is an elder of the Corpse sect. The Nether Saint is an elder of the Soul sect. They are both at the peak of the 6th realm. Chu Jiang of Gojosian is a subordinate of the Nether Saint. He's ranked second among the 10 kings of hell. Li Mu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His heart was thumping wildly. The psychological trauma caused by the 1,000 illusions venerable had not been completely eliminated. Now, there was the Nether Saint. He was just a lowly constable. Why was he always involved with such a monster? Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and asked, "Why are you suddenly asking about this?" Li Mu waved his hand and forced a smile on his face. He said, "Nothing, I'm just asking." Li Mu waited for less than an hour before Li Si walked in from outside. Li Mu stood up and asked, "How was it?" Li Si looked up at the sky and said, "Xiangxiang, Jean, shall we, Ping, and Suehua, goodbye forever. Have you seen Miss Miao Miao?" Li Si shook his head and said, "She is not in the county capital. She will be back in half a month." Li Mu asked, "Are you really going to stop?" Li Si sighed and said, "I'll take it one step at a time." "It's good to stop," Li Mu comforted him and said, "No matter how many women you have outside, it's not as good as having one at home." Li Si asked, "What about you?" "Me?" In Li Mu's mind, Li Qing's face and Lu Hanyan's figure appeared sometimes. He thought for a moment and waved his hand. "We'll see." This time, the county government promoted a total of 10 constables from the local area. Aside from Li Si, the other 9 were all local officials who had performed outstandingly in this zombie disaster, and had made some contributions to the local government. Among these people, there were no disciples from the big sections. In the county government, the disciples from the Buddhist and Taoist sects were the main force of the government. In the county government, they were the real officials of the Great Zhou. Their positions were either passed down by their ancestors or recruited by the county government. They were required to have a clean family background and no one from the previous 3 generations. They also had to be non-sect disciples. Among the 10 people, except for Li Mu, Li Si, and the young man, the others were all above 25 years old. Although they had reached the spirit condensing realm, with their talent, it would be difficult for them to reach the spirit condensing realm. There was no possibility for them to go further. In the county government, there were 6 spirit condensing realm constables who were directly responsible to the county lieutenant. The 6 constables were responsible for different areas in the county capital. If the county government couldn't solve a case in the North County, they were responsible for solving it. Of the 10 people who passed the test, 3 were under Constable Zhao's command. They were Li Mu, Li Si, and the young man. Li Mu's performance in the 3rd test was the most outstanding, so he naturally became Constable Zhao's deputy. Although this deputy didn't have any actual power, Li Mu was quite satisfied that he didn't need to patrol the streets. Constable Zhao gave them 3 days to familiarize themselves with the prefectural city and settle their own matters. During these 3 days, Li Mu temporarily stayed in an inn to refine the soul energy that the prefectural governor had bestowed upon him, as well as the soul energy he had collected from killing the evil spirits. The county capital wasn't like the county capital. The work here was more dangerous, so he had to improve his strength as much as possible. In these 3 days, Li Si had already moved to the county prime minister's manor. Li Mu couldn't help but be envious, so he could only ask the broker to help him find a house for rent near the county government. He looked at a few houses, but didn't find one that he was satisfied with. He thought that if he couldn't find one in a few days, he would just pick one and make do with it. In the county government, Constable Zhao spread a map on the table and said, "The eastern district of the county capital, as well as Yang County and Yu County in the east, are all under our jurisdiction. You have to arrange for people to patrol the city every day. Yang County and Yu County will only ask the county government for help if there's something they can't handle. What you have to do on a daily basis is to maintain the security of the eastern district and be responsible for the safety of the dozens of villages outside the eastern district." Li Mu's duties didn't change much compared to when he was in Yangqiu County. The only difference was that at that time, he only needed to follow behind Li Qing. Now, he had to rush in front. There wasn't much to do in the morning. Seeing that it was almost noon, Li Mu was about to go out for lunch when a yamen runner who was standing guard at the door walked into the room and said, "Constable Li, someone is looking for you." Other than the father and son of the Su family, Li Mu didn't know anyone else in the county capital. Could it be that shopkeeper Su felt that the gift he donated to the county government wasn't enough to express his gratitude, so he came to give another gift? Li Mu walked out expectantly. When he saw Zhang Shan standing outside the county government, he said disappointedly, "Why are you here?" Zhang Shan frowned. "What's with your expression?" Li Mu walked up and asked curiously, "Why are you in the county capital?" Zhang Shan said, "I'm here to send someone off." Li Mu asked, "Who are you sending off?" Zhang Shan pointed at the carriage parked at the entrance of the county government. Lu Hanyan lifted the curtain and jumped down from the carriage. Then, it was Wan Wan who jumped down with a little fox in her arms. Wan Wan ran over quickly and said happily, "Young master." Xiao Bai's eyes were also filled with smiles. Li Mu looked at them and asked in surprise, "Why are you in the county capital?" Wan Wan said with a smile, "Miss said that she wants to open a branch in the county capital." Li Mu calculated that they would arrive in the county capital at noon today. With the speed of the carriage, they should have left yesterday morning. This meant that from the time Li Mu left, Lu Hanyan only took 3 days from the time she decided to open a branch, arranged everything in Yangqiu County, packed her things and left. He walked to Lu Hanyan and asked, "You want to open a branch here?" Lu Hanyan glanced at him and said, "The business in Yangqiu County doesn't have much room to expand." Chapter 135. Lu Hanyan made the decision to open a branch in the prefecture capital 4 days ago. She used 3 days to arrange everything in Yangqiu County. After Zhang Shan heard about this from his wife, he was worried that the two of them would encounter danger on the road, so he took the initiative to escort them here. Li Mu knew very well that Lu Hanyan saying that she wanted to open a branch in the prefecture capital was just an excuse. Some things would happen countless times after the first time. In these 3 days, Li Mu also wanted to return to Yangqiu County countless times to dual cultivate with her every night. After all, this was much easier than cultivating alone. Opening a branch was just a spur-of-the-moment thing and she hadn't prepared anything yet. The first thing she had to solve was the problem of accommodation. To her, this couldn't be any easier. After dinner, she went to the broker house and bought a 2-story house. She gave the broker 10 taels of silver as a reward. The broker helped her complete all the transfer procedures within 2 hours and asked people to clean the house inside and outside. Zhang Shan couldn't help but sigh as he moved the boxes one by one from the carriage into the courtyard. It's so good to be rich. When can I buy a house like this? Li Si calculated and said, "It won't take too long. If you work in the county yamen and don't eat or drink, you can save 5 taels of silver a year. You can buy a house in 200 years. If you're willing to come to the prefecture yamen, you only need about 100 years, Lu Hanyan suddenly said. If brother Zhang Shan doesn't want to be a constable and is willing to come to Yunyan Pavilion, I guarantee that you can buy a house like this within 10 years. Li Si also said, "Didn't you just say that Lord Zhang's transfer order has arrived? He's about to leave Yangqiu County. When that time comes, you won't have much to do in the county yamen. Why don't you come to the prefecture capital?" Although the temptation of silver was great for Zhang Shan, he still said worriedly, "I'm not familiar with this place." Li Si patted his chest and said, "What are you afraid of? Don't worry, I will protect you." "You?" Zhang Shan pursed his lips and said, "You've only been in the prefecture city for a few days. Who can you protect?" Li Mu glanced at Zhang Shan and said, "He's really capable." Li Si was now living in the prefectural minister's mansion. In such a large prefecture, there were not many people that he could not protect. Even Li Mu needed his protection. Zhang Shan was still somewhat hesitant. He said, "Let me think about it." Li Si went straight to the point. "Do you want to stay in Yangqiu County to accompany your wife?" The hesitation on Zhang Shan's face disappeared as he said firmly, "I've made up my mind." After careful consideration, Zhang Shan decided to resign. First of all, after Jianghu County Magistrates was transferred, he had lost his backer in the county yamen. His life in the future might not be as good as before. Second of all, the job of a bailiff was too dangerous for an ordinary person like him. If he was not careful, he could lose his life. Especially after his experience in the past 6 months, he had long wanted to quit. Most importantly, he did not have to struggle for 200 years. It was already late, so Zhang Shan could not go back. He planned to leave early the next morning. Lu Hanyan said, "There are many rooms in the new house. If Brother Zhang Shan doesn't mind, you can stay here for the night." Zhang Shan was about to agree. After all, staying in an inn cost more money. Li Si shook his head and said, "There are no bedding in the new house. It's too troublesome to prepare," Zhang Shan said. "I can sleep on the floor." "It's fine." Li Si put his arm around his shoulder and said, "You came all the way here. How can I let you sleep on the floor? You can sleep with me tonight. My bed is very big and comfortable." Zhang Shan was dragged away by him. Before he left, Li Si looked back at Li Mu with a meaningful look. Lu Hanyan also gave Li Mu a look. It was a look that Li Mu was very familiar with. Li Mu's throat moved. He swallowed and said, I want to go back to the inn tonight." Lu Hanyan asked, "You're staying in an inn?" Li Mu nodded and said, "I haven't found a place to rent yet." Lu Hanyan pointed to the east and west rooms and said, "There are so many rooms here. You can choose one to live in. It'll be convenient for cultivation in the future." Without waiting for Li Mu to speak, she added, "If you think it's inconvenient, I can buy the house next door. You can choose to live next door. You can pay me rent every month. It's too troublesome to buy another house. I'll go to the inn to get my luggage." Li Mu thought about it carefully. Even Lu Hanyan didn't think it was a problem. He had nothing to worry about. In these 3 days, he wasn't used to being away from Lu Hanyan. After he went to the yamen, she didn't cook and wait for him at home. There was no one to dual cultivate with at night. Although Li Mu didn't show it when Lu Hanyan came to the county town, his empty heart was suddenly filled. Li Mu returned to the inn and packed his luggage. When he returned, Wan had already helped him tidy up the room and made the bed. The quilt on the bed wasn't new. There was a faint fragrance. Wan took Li Mu's bag and said, "Miss used to cover you with this quilt before. Miss said she would buy you a new one tomorrow." Li Mu waved his hand and said, "No need. It's okay if it's an old quilt. It's fine as long as it can be used." Li Mu packed his luggage and heard the sound of footsteps coming closer behind him. Lu Hanyan leaned against the door and glanced at Li Mu. "You're here?" A moment later, on the bed, Li Mu and Lu Hanyan sat cross-legged facing each other. Lu Hanyan got up from the bed and looked at Li Mu warily. She asked, "Why did you suddenly change your mind? Tell me, are you after my money?" Chapter 136. Good and evil had their retribution. This was the cycle of the heavenly Tao. Li Mu didn't expect retribution, and he didn't expect it to come so quickly. In the past, he had despised Lu Hanyan for not being as good at fighting as Li Qing and not being as obedient as Wan. She had actually remembered all of this. He looked at Lu Hanyan and opened his mouth, but he was speechless. The atmosphere on the bed was somewhat awkward. Lu Hanyan got off the bed and put on her shoes. She said, "I'm going back to my room." Li Mu had originally wanted to explain that he was not after her money, but after thinking about it, he decided against it. In any case, they were already living together. In the future, there would be plenty of opportunities to prove himself. To prove that he was not after her money, but purely after her body. After coming to the prefectural capital, Li Si's words had awakened Li Mu from his dreams. At the same time, Li Mu had recognized himself, and also began to face matters of the heart. In this half a year, Li Mu had focused on condensing his soul to survive. He did not have much time or energy to think about these issues. Even under such circumstances, two women still walked into his heart. Li Qing was the guide to his cultivation. She taught him cultivation, helped him condense his soul, protected him in all aspects, and saved his life several times. Although Lu Hanyan's cultivation was not high, she was kind-hearted and considerate. She had countless shining points. She fulfilled almost all the fantasies a man had of an ideal wife. To Li Mu, she was far more attractive than this. Pure yin and pure yang were innately suited for dual cultivation. After tasting it for the first time, the two were already inseparable. When he thought of Li Qing, Li Mu still felt some regret. However, he also knew very well that he could not change Li Qing's determination to seek the Tao. Li Si said that he had to cherish the people in front of him. Although he was talking about himself, Li Mu was thinking about Lu Hanyan. Today, when Li Mu saw her at the entrance of the prefectural government, he had already made his decision. However, Lu Hanyan was not Wanwan. It would not be easy to win her over. Feelings could not be rushed. Anyway, she had already arrived in the prefecture capital and did not plan to leave in a short period of time. They had plenty of time ahead of them. When he went to the county yamen tomorrow, he would ask Li Si for advice. Li Mu composed himself. Xiao Bai ran in from outside and jumped onto the bed. She said obediently, "Benefactor." Her cultivation had improved a lot compared to a few days ago, mainly because of the old fox's teachings before his death. Currently, she had not completely digested the soul power, otherwise, she would have been able to transform. However, due to the increase in its cultivation, the demonic aura it was emitting had also grown stronger. Chapter 137. Li Mu gave the peeled apple to Wanwan and Xiao Bai, then went back to his room. He really couldn't understand the thoughts of mature women. Wanwan and Xiao Bai were still the most adorable and simple ones. He decided to put the matter of Lu Hanyan aside for now. He had absorbed a lot of lust in the past 2 days. After Li Mu refined it, he continued to cultivate the 6 senses of Buddhism. The best time to condense one's soul was on the night of the 3rd, 13th, and 23rd of every month. Apart from these 3 days, the effect of condensing one's soul was very ordinary. However, the cultivation of the 6 senses of Buddhism didn't care about the time. Li Mu had already cultivated the first sense of sight. Ordinary demonic ghosts couldn't hide from his eyes. When the first sense of sight was cultivated to a high level, one could see through all fabrications and wouldn't be trapped by illusions or formations. This was something that even the clairvoyance spell couldn't compare to. Lu Hanyan went to Li Mu's room when it was time. She did not mention anything about what happened last night. The two of them sat cross-legged across from each other. 4 hours later, she got off the bed and left. The next morning, Li Mu had just arrived at the county yamen. Before he could sit down, Constable Zhao walked in and said, "The yamen received a report from the villagers yesterday. Something strange happened in Gua village outside the city. I suspect it's the work of a demonic ghost. You should go and take a look." Other than Li Mu, all of Constable Zhao's subordinates were out patrolling the streets. Li Mu asked about the direction of Gua village. He went out of the city gate from the east side and headed for Gua village alone. Before he left, he had asked around and found out that there were no deaths in Gua village. He had just arrived at the county yamen. Constable Zhao wouldn't give him the important cases. Gua village wasn't close to the county town. Li Mu used the teleporting talisman and it took him almost half an hour to get there. He arrived at Gua village and asked a villager about the situation. Then he knocked on the door of a house. It was a peasant woman who opened the door. When she saw Li Mu's clothes, her face lit up. She said, "Sir, you're finally here. Please save my husband." Li Mu walked into the courtyard and asked, "What happened?" The peasant woman said, "I don't know what's wrong with my husband. For the past few days, he's been going out every night. When he comes back in the morning, he falls asleep the moment he falls asleep. I can't wake him up even if I call him. This was a sign of insufficient yang qi. Li Mu thought for a moment and asked, "Where is your husband?" The woman pointed to the room and said, "He sleeps at home all day." Li Mu walked into the room and saw a man lying on the bed, snoring loudly. His eyes were sunken and his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. In the depths of the bamboo forest, a bamboo house was hidden. The man walked to the front of the bamboo house and pushed the door open. He said with a lewd smile, "Young lady, I'm here again." Golden light flashed in Li Mu's eyes. He saw that the bamboo house was filled with a faint demonic aura. Although the demonic aura was not as pure as Xiao Bai's, it was not dirty either. It meant that this demon did not feed on humans. Judging from the level of the demonic aura, it should be a demon in human form. Li Mu used his heavenly eye again. Together with the golden light in his eyes, he saw through the bamboo house and saw two figures inside. One of them was the man. He was lying flat on the ground. Wisps of white smoke slowly drifted out from his nose and were absorbed by the other figure. Judging from the man's twitching movements on the ground, he was probably lost in an illusion. This demon used the illusion to confuse the man's mind and take the opportunity to absorb his yang qi for cultivation. If Li Mu did not use the thunder technique, it would be difficult for him to defeat this demon in human form. However, if he used the thunder technique, it would be reduced to ashes. In that case, he would have nothing to say to the yamen. Moreover, with its actions, although it was guilty, it did not deserve to die. Li Mu thought for a moment and suddenly had an idea. He left Bai in the bamboo forest and slowly walked toward the bamboo house. Chapter 138. Inside the bamboo house, a woman in a green dress was absorbing the yang qi of the man on the ground. Suddenly, her expression changed and she looked at the door. Light footsteps came from the door of the bamboo house. A young man pushed the door open and said, "Guadaden, I was wondering what you were up to these days, sneaking out. It turns out that you are keeping a woman in the mountain. If you don't give me some benefits, I will go back and tell your wife. She will break your legs." Hearing this, the woman in the green dress softened. She put on a charming smile and walked away. After closing the door of the bamboo house, she said with a sweet smile, "Don't. What benefits do you want? I will give it to you." As she spoke, she spat out a puff of pink mist. The young man inhaled the mist and his expression became blurred. He looked at the woman in the green dress and murmured, "I want you." The woman in the green dress waved her sleeve and the man on the ground flew to the corner of the bamboo house, unconscious. She put one hand on the young man's chest and twisted her body. She said, "Young master, you are so naughty." The young man was in a daze. Step by step, she helped him to the bed and looked at him. She said in a low voice, "You are quite handsome. I can't bear to part with you." She put the young man on the bed gently and climbed onto the bed herself. She kept twisting beside him. Wisps of white mist flew out from the young man and were absorbed into her body. After a while, the woman in the green dress stopped. She looked confused. Although the young man who came in later had abundant yang qi, she only managed to absorb a little bit of it with great effort. On the other hand, it seemed that something in her body had been sucked dry. She felt dizzy and her legs were weak. She fell back onto the bed. She suddenly looked up at Li Mu and said in shock, You are not." Li Mu cast a spell with his left hand and a white light flashed outside the house. The Bai sword flew in from outside and was held in his hand. Li Mu pointed the sword at the woman and said coldly, "How dare you, demon? I can tell at a glance that you are not human." Li Mu had already seen that the woman's true form was a green snake when he was outside. The yang qi of Gua village's man had been sucked away by this shape-shifting snake demon. The woman was furious when Bai Yi pointed at her. "Damn it! You're a cultivator." Li Mu said coldly, "You didn't walk the righteous path, so you should have expected this day to come. The woman in the green dress coldly snorted, that will depend on your ability. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly disappeared into thin air, leaving only a green dress on the bed. Where do you think you're going? Li Mu jumped down from the bed. Holding Bai in his hand, he chased after a green shadow that was fleeing at high speed at the door. The body of this snake demon was a green snake about 10 feet long. The woman asked anxiously, will that monster come looking for us? Li Mu waved his hand and said, no, just take care of your man. The snake demon was clearly not that bold. Otherwise, she would have fed on humans or gone around seducing men instead of waiting for them in the bamboo house. In the end, it was the man himself who couldn't resist the temptation, which gave the demon the opportunity to take advantage of him. Thank you, my lord. The woman bent down and carried the man on her shoulder, saying, I'll tie him up and keep him in the house. If he dares to run out again, I'll break his legs. Li Mu left Gua village and replaced the teleport talisman on his leg with a low-level talisman he drew himself. This high-level talisman was much faster than the one he drew. It could be used to save his life at a critical moment and could be used at a critical moment. He first went back to the government office and told the constable on duty about the green snake demon. Li Mu was just a small constable who had just entered the spirit-condensing realm. He wasn't qualified to deal with the matter of a shape-shifting demon, let alone a demon cultivator who had formed a demon core. The government office would send someone better to investigate. Although he didn't catch the green snake, Li Mu had sucked her lust to his heart's content. A demon with such a cultivation level would have a lot of emotional power. If it were an ordinary woman, Li Mu might have to suck thousands of them to reach the spirit-condensing realm. But if he sucked the green snake every day, he might be able to reach the spirit-condensing realm in less than a month. In fact, he shouldn't have made a bet with the green snake. He should have caught her and sucked her lust every day to help him cultivate. After tailing Gua village for a long time and fighting the green snake, he had to report back to the government office. When he got home, it was already midnight. Lu Hanyan and the others were already asleep. Li Mu didn't have time to eat in the afternoon. He was going to cook a bowl of noodles for himself. As soon as he walked into the yard, Lu Hanyan came out from the inner yard with a lantern in her hand. Li Mu asked in surprise, why aren't you asleep yet? Lu Hanyan yawned and said, I'm a little hungry and can't sleep. I'm going to cook a bowl of noodles. Do you want to join me? Li Mu said, then cook a bowl for me too. Soon, Lu Hanyan cooked 2 bowls of clear soup noodles. The two of them ate in Li Mu's room. In addition to a few vegetables, Li Mu also had 2 poached eggs in his bowl. His appetite was greatly increased. He finished the noodles quickly and even drank the soup. When he put down the bowl, he saw that Lu Hanyan's noodles hadn't been touched. He was stunned for a moment and asked, why aren't you eating? Lu Hanyan supported her chin with one hand and said, I'm suddenly not hungry anymore. If you can still eat, eat mine too.